Hello and a very good morning. It's 7 o'clock. This is Mornings on Sky News. I'm Anna.
And I'm Leah. Thanks for starting your day with us. This is how things are looking.
President Trump's 5-day deadline to Iran slips, giving Tehran another 10 days to reopen the strait or face energy infrastructure destruction.
We asked the Prime Minister about the recent slew of insults he's faced from President Trump and hear how his position on Britain in the war won't change.
An hour a day, and then it's time to put down the iPad. We've got the first ever official guidance on screen time for kids.
And have you seen Hampshire's missing capybara? We've got an update on Samba, the runaway rodent.
Our favourite story. Plus, we all like words of encouragement, but we're going to hear how AI chatbots are sending people into delusions and how dangerous that could be. Hello, very good morning. Thanks for joining us. President Trump's 5-day deadline to Iran has now slipped to a further 10 days. He'd given Iran until tonight to reopen the Strait of Hormuz to global shipping, or else see the country's energy infrastructure destroyed.
Yeah, more on that in just a moment. But first, Donald Trump was the topic of conversation in an exclusive interview with the Prime Minister. Sakir sat down with our political editor, Beth Rigby.
You are the Prime Minister of Great Britain, and for many people in the UK, many people listening to this podcast or watching it, insulting you is like insulting our country. Do you understand why some people feel like that?
There's undoubtedly been, some hard decisions over the last few weeks. I have been clear I'm not going to join the war. There's a clear difference, therefore, of opinion between me and President Trump. My own view is that a lot of what is said and done has been to put pressure on me to change my mind, but I'm not going to do so because I'm the British Prime Minister and I have to act in the British national interest.
For me, what I think, and maybe this is because I'm a bit too up close and I spend every sort of moment watching every twist and turn of the Starmer-Trump relationship, I think there was quite a long period, and I sort of said it there, did he underestimate you? Did he think that you trying to accommodate him was weakness? Because I think there was quite a long time that Trump used to say quite outlandish things. You know, all that stuff he said about Sadiq Khan, stuff that Starmer would have found absolutely ludicrous but also offensive, and he didn't really stand up and challenge it. He just let a lot of stuff wash over him. So for me, for him to kind of stand up in the sense of saying, I'm not going to be moved, I'm not going to be pushed around, I know what's going on, I do think it's a bit of a change in position, and I do think it's partly because he's probably encouraged by how the public are responding to Trump.
And you can scan the QR code to listen to Beth's full sit-down with the Prime Minister on the Electoral Dysfunction podcast. You can also listen on YouTube too.
Yeah, and it's so interesting, isn't it, hearing Sakir Starmer there talking about what it feels like to get those insults from Donald Trump. And as we heard him saying there, he's not going to let the pressure get to him and it's not going to make him change his mind or his stance on the war. But the slights do keep on coming. I mean, just yesterday, Donald Trump was calling him a liberal, which from Donald Trump is an insult. He also described Britain's 2 aircraft carriers as toys as well. Sure. And this was all in a kind of a filmed cabinet meeting that went on a very long time. It included the Defence Secretary, or Secretary of State for War, as he calls himself, Pete Hegseth, talking about how they believe that London was within striking distance of Iran's ballistic missiles after that failed strike on Diego Garcia because of the distance they'd worked out. So Keir Starmer was saying, it doesn't get to me, it's not affecting me, but the problem is that the war is affecting the economy, isn't it? And so that does affect his job, because...
And I can imagine it being quite difficult for leaders, waking up and not knowing which insult is coming from the president. But I have a feeling, and I think people at home may agree with this, once the King's visit happens in the US, I wonder if this strained relationship will be in the same position that it is now.
Yeah, well, that's the hope, certainly, that will smooth things over, because that relationship is clearly an important one. Meanwhile, President Trump will hold off bombing Iran's energy infrastructure, instead announcing a further 10-day pause. Now, this was part of his ultimatum to Tehran to reopen the Strait of Hormuz.
Yeah, the current state of the talks between the two countries, well, that remains unclear. Our US correspondent David Blevins reports from Washington.
They're firing tomahawks, but they're talking too, so says the commander-in-chief.
They are begging to make a deal, not me. They're begging to make a deal.
Nearly 4 weeks into this war, he claims Iran is signalling its intention to negotiate. Now that the United States has removed Ayatollah Ali Khamenei.
The supreme leader wasn't so supreme, no longer with us. It's very sad.
The president's special envoy seems optimistic.
I can say this. We will see where things lead, and if we can convince Iran that this is the inflection point with no good alternatives for them, other than more death and destruction. We have told Iran one last thing. Don't miscalculate again.
But the self-proclaimed war secretary doesn't sound convinced.
We pray for a deal and we welcome a deal, and we have the ultimate deal maker to make it happen. But in the meantime, as I said yesterday, the Department of War will continue negotiating with bombs.
And the president doesn't sound like a man under pressure.
I mean, I read a story today that I'm desperate to make a deal. If I was desperate, he'd be the first to know. Pete, let's get the hell out of there. I'm the opposite of desperate. I don't care.
So the bombs continue to drop. It's a military triumph, they say, and one of their own making.
I'm so disappointed in NATO because this was a test for NATO. They have an expression, a great expression, never forget. You can never forget.
The UK still incurring most of the president's wrath.
The UK say that we'll send, this is 3 weeks ago, we'll send our aircraft carriers, which aren't the best aircraft carriers, by the way. They're toys compared to what we have. But we'll send our aircraft carrier when the war is over. I said, oh, that's wonderful. Thank you very much. Don't bother. We don't need it. And we don't need it, and we don't need them.
But he does need time, it seems, pausing his plan to bomb Iran's power plants again for 10 days this time. Posting on Truth Social, talks are ongoing, and despite erroneous statements to the contrary by the fake news media and others, they are going very well. But how long will he let talks continue?
In Trump time, a day, you know what it is? That's an eternity.
There's no rush then for the war cabinet. David Blevins, Sky News in Washington.
Well, let's turn now to the impact of the war on Lebanon. The Deputy Prime Minister has told Sky News that Israel is committing war crimes through its ongoing bombardment of his country.
We're documenting every violation of international humanitarian law to the best of our abilities. And there is no doubt that Israel is committing war crimes, in my view. Is violating the Geneva Accords, starting with the two basic principles in the international humanitarian law. The principle of distinction between combatants and civilians, and the principle of proportionality. Neither of these two basic principles of international humanitarian law are respected by Israel, and Israel has a track record of just ignoring such two principles. I mean, look at Gaza.
Meanwhile, medics in Lebanon have told Sky News they also fear that Israel's campaign against Hezbollah risks turning the country into another Gaza.
Our special correspondent Alex Crawford is in southern Lebanon and witnessed the medical professionals who are becoming victims of this war. Here's a clip from her report.
Patching up Lebanon's victims of war is a long and heartbreaking process. And right now, there's a constant stream of them. This patient, like so many of the casualties, was wounded in an Israeli airstrike which struck in the dead of night whilst he slept with his family. He now has 65% burns across his body, which will require months of treatment.
And the doctors tell us they're seeing rising numbers of casualties, not just civilians, but amongst them, many children.
The medics are mostly volunteers, among them 2 British doctors, both of whom have worked in Gaza, and a doctor in exile from Gaza. And they all see alarming similarities between what's happening there and now what's going on in Lebanon.
What is being done here is exactly the systemic destruction, systemic gradual occupation as happened in Gaza. Started with evacuation of all people displaced to the north, and then systemic deliberate destruction of all infrastructure, mainly the hospitals too.
The doctors want more action from world leaders to ensure health workers are protected.
International humanitarian law has been ignored, and nobody is doing anything about it. There's, I'd say there's some words, a little bit of, strong words occasionally, but as usual, no action. And this is, it feels like it's just become accepted now, that it's become, that's okay, it's accepted to do that.
Dr. Potakar set up the burns unit at Sidon's government hospital, and among his patients is a father whose teenage son was killed and he was left badly burned. He shows us a picture of his son Jad.
I don't speak about him. He is 15 years old. I don't feel. No feeling. I lose my boy.
He can barely talk with grief and shock. Another family destroyed in the middle of the night, and he's overwhelmed with loss right now. He says his home in central Beirut was one of 2 hit in a high-rise apartment block. All were civilians. This picture shows the family at a relative's wedding. His wife and older teenage son survived unharmed. Jad, seen here on the right, was killed instantly. The Israeli military says it's targeting Hezbollah militants with precision strikes.
Israel liars. Israel are bull. Israel are big liars.
Well, Israel's military has said it's targeting Hezbollah infrastructure and says the ground operation it's launched in Lebanon is a defensive effort to protect northern Israel from Hezbollah attacks. Well, Sky News has approached the IDF for comment, and Alex's full report is available on the Sky News website.
Now then, how much time are your children spending looking at screens? I'm not actually asking you, but though I am quite interested. We've got the first official guidance coming out today on just this subject. Our education reporter, Anjan Pirbakos, is here with us. This is so interesting, isn't it?
Definitely.
So the government thinking it's necessary to put out guidance. Why is that, first of all, and what's it saying?
I mean, I think it's a groundbreaking kind of a guidance that's come through from the government. It's not via schools, it's not via nurseries. This is directly to parents, so this is definitely a first. And I think it's come as a result of witnessing and observing the kind of minefield that is screens and how you manage them as a parent. I think there's a real acknowledgement here of how difficult it can be. And as a parent myself, I know that I've implemented particular rules and regulations around screens and tablets and access to the internet because it can be, like I say, a minefield. So this guidance, I think, I've spoken to some teaching unions, but also Parent Kind, which is a parent organisation, and they've really welcomed the guidance because they found it quite difficult to navigate that space.
Totally. And on that, Mark, can you just talk us through what the guidance is?
Right. So the advice is that if the child is under 2, there should be very limited, if any, screen time at all. And the screen time should be sort of in conjunction with a parent. So it might be like you're doing a FaceTime call with a family member or something, but with a parent. So the advice is really to move away from that social media scrolling, that fast-paced exposure to large volumes of content. And what they are advising is that between 2 and 5, really that content is limited. And where you can avoid it, avoid any screens at bedtime, at meal times, and really kind of using that time to instigate and kind of channel that time and energy into play, into physical activity, but also things where it's OK for children to be bored. It's OK to have that blank amount of time. And there's loads of research to say, actually, it's good for children to be bored because that's where your creativity can come from and where it can lead.
Yeah, and this is all about concerns about children's development, isn't it? Turning up at school. I was reading somewhere that lots of children turning up at school now tapping on a book or trying to swipe it because they're more used to screens than they are to books.
That's absolutely something that's happening, and I think that there's a real important piece of information and research here that, you know, 90% of children's development takes place by the age of 5. So if that child is exposed to vast volumes of social media content or internet or scrolling time that's unmonitored and kind of self or solo screen time, that can be a real concern for their development.
It's so interesting, isn't it? Because my children, 8 and 5, are the first sort of generation born into the digital age, so that those dopamine hits that they get from being on, whether it's YouTube or any other streaming service, it's instant. So being bored, you know, that's encouraged to be a really good thing. And while there's no judgment around how much time you allow your kids to have, certainly not from me, on screens, you know, I'm a concerned parent, so all of those recommendations I'm already doing. So my only caveat in all of this, and I think it's important guidance, is that how do you reach the parents that don't do this, that don't mind that their child is on a device?
Who rely on it for childcare when they're so stretched. That's the other question, isn't it? It can be quite difficult for some parents. Andrew, really interesting subject. In fact, we're going to be talking to the Minister for Children, Families and Wellbeing very shortly about just this subject. So really interesting to see what the government has to say. But thanks very much indeed. Thank you. Now then, let's just bring you a little bit of breaking news. And the Competition and Markets Authority has said it's launched investigations into Auto Trader, FIFO, Dignity, Just Eats and Pasta Evangelist as part of its crackdown on what they say are fake and misleading reviews. So we're going to keep an eye on that for you. But the Competition and Markets Authority launching an investigation into various companies there as part of what they describe as their crackdown on fake and misleading reviews. So I think we can now talk to the Children's Minister, Josh McAllister, and the government announcing, of course, today those guidelines, as we were saying, on screen time for children. Josh McAllister, very good morning to you. Thanks so much for talking to us. So you're publishing this guidance. First of all, why are you publishing guidance? Because some people watching might say, isn't this up to individuals to decide how they manage their own children, and it's not for the government to make calls like this? What would you say to them?
It absolutely is up to parents to make these sorts of decisions. We're responding to the fact that parents have been asking in quite large numbers for more help with these issues, and that's why the government is undertaking a big consultation at the moment on social media for teenagers. It's why we've taken lots of action very recently on AI tools that we've got lots of concerns about for children as well. And it's why today we're publishing helpful guidance looking at the best available evidence for younger children about screen time use. There's no judgment in it, but we want to help create some new social norms where parents can know what does the evidence suggest, what does it say, and therefore what might they be able to do to help their child achieve and develop well in the first few years of their life.
And it's interesting you say there's no judgment, but there will be some people watching who are struggling to make ends meet. They're having to work very hard. They're relying on screens to entertain their kids while they juggle busy lives. And some of those parents might end up feeling a bit guilty seeing guidance like this. Do you worry about that at all?
Yeah, look, it's really not designed with that effect in mind. We want to make sure that we're giving practical tools to parents who've got so much on their plate. You know, that's why the government's introduced and is rolling out free breakfast clubs. It's why we funded nursery care support for children. It's why we're rolling out Best Start family hubs to learn all the best lessons from Sure Start. And actually, lots of the tools that are in the guidance today for parents link to resources that we've got in Best Start family hubs. So we really do want to make life easier for parents with these issues. We know that it's a massive problem. And the suggestions are that if you've got a child who's between 2 and 5, try and do no more than an hour on a screen a day. And if you are doing that, try and make sure it's slow content rather than kind of social media, algorithmic and addictive stuff, the kind of brain rot stuff that lots of adults, myself included, sometimes spend time looking at on things like Instagram, YouTube and TikTok, and try to focus it on educational things. So we're not saying, you know, don't ever do it. We're not saying there's any judgment. It's not a rule, but it is just putting the information out there with the evidence that's available.
And so you're asking parents to consider limiting screen time, but a lot of the platforms are designed to keep people hooked, keep people addicted. So are you having conversations with tech companies about their role in all this?
We are, and actually the government will be acting on exactly that issue. So the consultation that's underway at the moment, which is the broadest consultation ever to be undertaken, looking at what the rules, what the parameters should be for how teenagers and children are using social media. And what the Prime Minister has said as recently as yesterday is that he is himself personally very concerned about algorithmic content that's addictive, particularly for children, and that the consultation isn't asking whether we should act. The consultation is asking in what way should the UK government act to address this for children and teenagers. And that is because this is one of the biggest issues that parents are facing. I started my career as a school teacher. You know, that was just at the point when phones were coming into schools in a big way, and it's really transformed over the last 15 years. It's changed childhood in some pretty fundamental and worrying ways, and we are acting to help parents, help schools, and change the nature of the rules that sit around this so that we can protect children.
And how will you know if the guidance is actually working? What outcomes are you hoping to see in children's development over the next few years?
We've got goals as a government as part of our mission to break down the barriers to opportunity at every stage to improve early years development. But I think that actually the guidance this morning isn't so much about setting a target on a change with something that the government might measure. It's also about trying to help create a new social norm. People will remember, I think everybody in the country knows that you should try and eat your 5 a day. That's something which we don't always do, but we've got in the back of our mind when we're making choices about what to eat. And I think this guidance is trying to get into a similar place, which is what are the collective ideas that we've got as a country about how we should be using screens with our children, especially when they're little, and what are some of the things that we should just be taking into account so that we give our children the best chance to have a good start in life.
I'm going to ask you about some of the other issues now, because obviously the Iran war is occupying a lot of minds. And yesterday, the OECD said that Britain faces a bigger economic downgrade as a result of the war in Iran than any other major country. The OECD cutting its 2026 forecast for the UK growth, meaning we'll have the weakest economic growth in the developed world this year. Do you accept that you're not going to be able to meet your promises on growth and on the cost of living?
Well, we don't accept that, and it's too early to say, but there are two big important things I think to set out here. One is the long-term fundamentals for the UK economy have been battered by Brexit, by COVID, by Liz Truss's mini budget, and by Ukraine. And underneath all of that, we had very low productivity gains and very sluggish growth through a decade of austerity. So that is how we came into government. Added to that, in terms of our energy system, we weren't building new nuclear power plants, we weren't putting enough renewables on the grid, and we weren't upgrading our grid infrastructure. That has left the UK more exposed than it should have been to these kind of energy shocks. But what we have done since the election in terms of creating the fiscal headroom to weather some of these events, and also the big interest rate and inflation reductions that we've seen since we've come to power, leave us right now in a position where the economy is stable, it's able to weather some of these challenges. And of course, we're monitoring the situation really closely, and making sure we support families with the cost of living is the absolute #1 priority. And the Chancellor has said really clearly that we will look at the support that people need as this situation unfolds.
Keir Starmer, the Prime Minister, has done an interview with our political editor, Beth Rigby, for her Electoral Dysfunction podcast. And he's said to her that he beats himself up about the decision to appoint Peter Mandelson US ambassador. And on that subject, there's been a lot of attention on the loss of the phone of the PM's former Chief of Staff, Morgan McSweeney, and what that means for transparency over the appointment. We're now told that Peter Mandelson is going to be asked to hand over his phone so that there is some transparency as far as those messages are concerned. The government says that was always the plan, but this is really because Morgan Masweeli lost his phone, isn't it?
I don't believe it is. The police need to be right at the centre of making decisions about this, given the criminal investigation that's underway. So they're in the driving seat of this, and that's what I think the public and your viewers would expect. I believe a transcript of the conversation between Morgan McSweeney and the police when he reported the phone missing is available. I don't know how it's become available, but it is, and that should, I think, reassure people that there's not some far-fetched conspiracy that's underway here. People in London, unfortunately, have had their phones stolen. We're doing quite a lot through the Met Police to tackle that issue, but that's not an unusual thing to happen. It was reported to the police, and regarding the broader issues here, which the Prime Minister, is right to say that he's regretful of and apologises for, and it was a mistake. The police are absolutely in the driving seat of those decisions about how information is gathered and shared. The government is really keen to get that information out there. We want to, because we want people to be able to see how those decisions were made transparently.
And finally, the Financial Times is reporting that Keir Starmer is set to make Sadiq Khan a peer. Is that true?
I have no idea.
Should he be one? I mean, I think Keir Starmer's already appointed more peers than any of the previous 4 prime ministers.
Look, I don't know whether he's planning on making Sadiq Khan a peer. What I would say is that, and as a minister who sat in the House of Commons, when you've got members of the House of Lords who've got real experience in local government and now in mayoral positions, it's incredibly helpful for the legislation that we're trying to pass, and making sure that the laws that we make are scrutinised by, challenged by and improved by those who are closest to the ground. So the principle of it is certainly not a bad idea. We've got a lot of great mayors across the country. OK, well, Josh McAllister, we appreciate your time this morning talking about screen time guidance and many other subjects. Thanks very much indeed. Thank you. Yeah, really interesting on the screen guidance. I'm sure it'll prompt lots of debates up and down the country.
Yeah, it will, including in our household too.
Yes, debates is a euphemism for arguments probably over that screen time.
Still so much to come, isn't there, on Mornings on Sky News. After the break, we'll be talking about the war in Iran, damage already done by the war, but just how bad could it get for the global economy if it carries on?
Yeah, we're going to speak to a former US Treasury advisor and World Bank Group executive next.
Returning now to our top story, and US President Donald Trump has extended his deadline for Iran to open the Strait of Hormuz by another 10 days after threatening to strike the country's energy infrastructure.
Well, let's talk now about all of this and the impact on the world economy with Matthew Maguire, who's former World Bank Group Executive Director and former Senior Advisor at the US Treasury. Very good morning to you. Thanks so much for talking to us. The OECD yesterday said the war in Iran will knock back global growth. What do you think the economic impact is likely to be?
It's going to be significant, and we're already seeing it. And people often focus too much on oil and gas prices and things of that sort. The thing we have to remember is we move everything, whether it's on ships or on trucks or anywhere else, through actually oil and gas prices, whether it's diesel or anywhere else. So if you think about basic goods like groceries and toys and all the things that really matter, as gas and oil prices go up, it means everything consumers have to buy goes up. And what does that do? It reduces growth. And so to your point, the projections OECD put out today are that the UK's growth will only be 0.5%. The US's will only be 1.7%. And I would remind everyone that in 2024, the US's was 2.8. It dropped down to 2.1 last year. It's going in the wrong direction. And why that matters is that when the US catches a cold, a lot of other countries around the world catch pneumonia. We're going to see widespread damage for a long time to come.
It's interesting, isn't it, Matthew? We've heard from President Donald Trump saying another 10 days, this is the deadline. How serious a moment is this for the United States, and what options are open to the president moving forward?
My sense is the president is really scrambling right now. And first he had a 5-day pause, now a 10-day pause. Clearly, a lot of commentators have noted that he gets very shaken when the stock market goes in different directions. But I would point to a few other things. Right now, we're seeing all this damage to oil infrastructure. The US, Israel, and Iran have been attacking oil infrastructure. The Qataris tell us that 20% of their production is offline for the next 3 to 5 years. They are the second largest producer of natural gas in the world, and therefore that's a very big problem. The other thing I would point to is that the Saudis and the Emiratis are saying they may actually get directly involved in the actual war fighting here, which just means this thing is expanding and expanding. A final point, the Qataris, who are normally an intermediary between Iran and the US, they have expelled Iranian diplomats. So things are going south very quickly, and I think that's why President Trump is making these new announcements on a daily basis, because it's a little unclear what the strategy is for getting us to a better place.
And do you think he wants out? You say he's slightly rattled by markets not liking it. Do you think that will prompt him to look for what you describe in America particularly as an off-ramp?
I think he's looking for that. The challenge is that Iran controls the Strait of Hormuz. And because war has become miniaturized, if you will, it's no longer just about having the biggest battleships and the biggest missiles. War has become something where if you have rocket-propelled grenades and speedboats and you have access to hundreds of miles of coastline, like the Iranians do in the Strait of Hormuz, they can make this thing go on for a while. You know, President Trump seems to think that he can just declare when this is over, but the Iranians have a say, and they're making it very clear they have a say. And I think the real concern now is what do they decide going forward? In the same way as we've seen in the last year, Russia and China have pushed back very hard against President Trump, and he's not been successful either in getting the Russians out of Ukraine or in getting China to stand down on the trade war. At some point, we have to realize, for all of his bluster, President Trump is just not a good negotiator, and I don't say that from a political perspective. I say it from facts on the ground, what's happening with our economy around the world, and what's happening with our military situation in the Gulf.
So how long do you see this going on? Could it end next week or next year?
I think that's the question. What do we mean by this ending? So will the U.S. pull back? Potentially, but I would note that we've surged in thousands and thousands of troops to that area. And it's not just one area, it's the Marines. We have an expeditionary force we've brought from Japan over. It's our 82nd Airborne, which is very lethal. We're putting a lot of people in the region. So yes, we could pull back, but I'm not sure we would. But my point a little earlier is that it depends on what Iran wants to do. It depends on what Russia wants to do. Russia is right now targeting American troops in the Middle East. If Russia decides they want to lean in even farther, They're a very big military player. It's not just about President Trump. It's about a lot of other actors right now.
And what do you think the long-term effects of this war could be, however long it goes on? Will countries rethink their dependence on fossil fuels, do you think? Will there be more protectionism? Do you think there are lasting impacts for different economies?
My sense is that fossil fuels are here. We're going to be dealing with them for a long while. Certainly, a lot of countries have moved towards nuclear and solar and wind, and we could go down that path. So I think there is more of a balancing that'll be going on. My sense is that the real big shift is on global alliances, and clearly NATO is thinking differently. Germany, France, the UK are thinking differently about the relationship with the US. A lot of other countries around the world are actually turning to China right now as the more reliable partner. Now, China is not likely to provide any military cover anytime soon, but a lot of countries are looking around and saying, if the US isn't a stalwart ally as part of NATO, then we have to think very differently. And we heard, of course, Mark Carney say this at Davos quite explicitly. So for me, it's really the geopolitical alliances that are shifting. We should watch and thinking about where the world goes from here.
Yeah, it's such a fascinating subject. Really interesting to get your thoughts on it this morning too, or late at night, I think, for you. Matthew Maguire, thanks very much indeed.
Thank you.
OK, we're going to talk about AI now and whether it is messing with your mind.
Well, yeah, it's something that our tech correspondent, Roland, has been looking at after a report revealed that the scale of what's becoming known as AI psychosis.
Yeah, perhaps most interesting is who did the report. It's Anthropic, one of the world's leading AI companies.
Have you heard of AI psychosis? It's a controversial term, but the idea is simple. Can AI pull people away from reality, especially in their weakest moments? Like when people came to Anthropic's AI Claude saying that it had divine callings, and Claude responded with phrases like, "This is real, you're not crazy." Or when people told Claude they'd seen coincidences or glitches that made them feel like they were being watched, and Claude responded with the phrases like, "Confirmed, smoking gun, this is stalking." Those examples are real. They come from a paper put out recently by Anthropic and the University of Toronto, which used AI to scan through 1.5 million conversations with Claude from December 2025. The paper didn't call what was happening AI psychosis. They called it disempowerment. And the most common form of severe disempowerment, they called reality distortion. But here's the most unsettling part of all this. People appear to like reality distortion. Conversations with the potential for severe or moderate reality distortion got more thumbs up, not less. There have been reports of this kind of thing with all the major AI companies. And it makes me wonder, can we handle this? Is the human brain capable of dealing with AI that is powerful, but more importantly, persuasive? I spoke to one of the Anthropic researchers behind this paper, Miles McCain, and he set out the core problem behind all this.
AI systems telling you what you want to hear, not appropriately pushing back against you when it seems like you are wrong.
That's the key idea here. AI telling you what you want to hear.
We found that, of course, this behavior was quite rare, but there were concerning scenarios where Claude was enabling this, which is why I think it's so important to study this and look at this problem straight in the eye.
In Anthropic's data, around 1 in 1,000 conversations had the potential for severe reality distortion. And that might not sound like much, but at the scale these platforms operate, it adds up fast. Anthropic reckon that if a chatbot has 100 million conversations every day, then you get 76,000 conversations with the potential for distortion daily. And remember, this is real people we're talking about. People reaching out in isolation, in pain, in fear, anxiety, reaching out to a friendly voice on the other end, and then potentially being nudged in the wrong direction. Can the AI companies fix it? Well, it's not going to be easy because AIs are so complex, they don't really understand why they do what they do.
As of today, this is an open problem. We actually don't know why Claude responds as it does consistently.
And then there's the human problem, because a big feedback signal these companies rely on is us.
We found in this paper that people tended to prefer the potentially concerning responses.
And you can watch Roland's full report. He'll be joining us a bit later, won't he, for that full AI update there.
Yeah, really interesting subject that. He's going to be here in about an hour, I think. Yeah. But right now, we're going to get more on the appointment of Lord Mandelson as UK ambassador to the US. We're hearing how he's being asked to hand over messages from his personal phone as part of this probe. And Rob's here to tell us all about it. We've heard a lot about phones and messages in the last few days, particularly Morgan McSweeney's, PM's former chief of staff's phone, which went missing.
Yep.
Is asking Peter Mandelson for his private phone about filling in the gaps?
So the government claim not. They say it was always the plan, basically, as part of this process to put out all of these documents connected to Peter Mandelson, that the Commons demanded that they would always ask for information from the personal phone, that basically the Cabinet Office, which is coordinating this, had a plan for how they gather their information, and one part of that plan was always to go back through personal phones as well. Of course, it makes it more relevant, the fact that Morgan McSweeney hasn't got the phone that he had potentially through that period where Peter Mandelson was appointed. We know he reported that stolen to police on the 20th of October. Number 10 haven't said whether that will have an impact on what messages are handed over, but you know, it's safe to say that it may well have some kind of impact on what can be got at and what is available. We will have to see. We shouldn't have to wait too much longer for this second set of information. You would imagine it would come in this Parliament, and given that the next state opening of Parliament is the middle of May, you'll have Parliament prorogued at some point before that, so we should get it at some point in April. And then I imagine there'll be an inevitable argument about whether they're being fully transparent, whether everything is in there that should be in there, and whether stuff has been, you know, hidden or covered up. I mean, it sort of speaks to broader stories, doesn't it, about how politicians communicate now, using personal phones, using WhatsApp, switching on disappearing messages, and the element of transparency that can be present in that more broadly. And
quite interesting, the comments that the Prime Minister made about the appointment of Peter Mandelson to Beth Rigby and her podcast, An Electoral Dysfunction, wasn't it? I mean, he was being very kind of candid, it appeared.
Yeah, I think, he talked about how, you know, no one beats themselves up more about this than me, that, you know, no one is harder on me than me about it. So, look, he's laying it on thick, shall we say, but I think he knows that that's because this is ultimately, it comes back to the judgment call that he made about allowing Peter Mandelson to be put into that place in the first place. The difficulty is that, I think that the damage has already been done. The political damage has already been done there for Keir Starmer, and I'm not sure how much damage limitation you can do by sort of sitting down and saying, basically, I'm really, really, really sorry. I guess the increasing danger when this next set of messages come out is, you know, what it shows about some of the, you know, potentially close connections that Mandelson had with elements of the government as well, and it just digs it all back up, and it all then comes back again to the Prime Minister and the decision he made.
And we'll all be talking about it, no doubt. Rob, before you go, are you a fan of capybaras?
Yeah.
It feels like it's
that wasn't on my notes for this too.
It's what we're talking about next, and I thought you looked like you might be a fan.
There is an escaped one, isn't there?
There is.
Indeed. In the south. And
that's exactly it.
There's nothing I love more than a story about a random escaped animal. So,
I know, me too. There's usually one most summers, actually. I think this is a little early in the season, because this is Samba, isn't it?
It is, and I think it's less escaped and more slightly dazed capybara in a pond somewhere, a little bit anxious.
Yeah, apparently they do like water.
They do.
If they get anxious, they dive in because they can hold their breath for 10 minutes. Yeah, I've just read that.
Very interesting fact.
Yes.
Capybara watch. So this capybara, it escaped about 9 days ago?
Yes, I think that's right.
9 days ago. It's from Marwell Zoo, and they're essentially trying to track this capybara down. And these pictures, they were filmed by a member of the public who spotted the animal walking around by the riverbank in Twyford. We can also hear from someone from the zoo. Take a listen.
We are doing everything we can and deploying every resource we have really to try and find Samara and bring her back. Social animals, capybaras, they like to be with other capybaras. So that's why we want to find her and reunite her with her sibling as soon as we can.
Oh, well, we hope they track her down.
Yeah, I think they will very soon.
I think her friend is missing her. I can't remember what its name is, the other one. Tango, there we go, Tango. Anyway, capybara updates to follow.
Yes, let's take a look at the weather.
Dinner under the stars tonight?
That reminds me of our travel insurance.
You mean All Clear Skies?
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors Sky News weather.
So the next few days will remain on the cold side with showers or longer spells of rain. England and Wales will be rather cloudy this morning with outbreaks of mostly light rain, but the far southeast looks dry. Elsewhere, expect plenty of sunshine, but showers will develop away from southern and eastern Scotland and the southeast of Ireland. And then by lunchtime, Cumbria, Northumberland will brighten up and it won't be as cold as recent days. More of northern England and Wales will turn sunny through the afternoon, but expect a few showers there too.
All Clear Travel Insurance proudly sponsors Sky News weather.
And it's that time in the morning we say good morning to Jackie Beltrao. How are you, Jackie?
I'm good, thank you. I stayed in a hotel once in Brazil where one of the waiters' jobs was to keep the capybaras away from people eating breakfast.
No, is that right?
There were thousands of them.
It was the vegetarians have to worry most. They don't eat meat, apparently.
But I think they do like fruit. Anyway, it was quite sad sport this morning, actually, coming up in the sport. 3 home nations in action trying to get to the World Cup last night. 3 home nations did not make it, so there will be no Wales, Republic of Ireland or Northern Ireland at the World Cup. So we'll be talking about that a bit, what went wrong, what went right, look at some of the action. And also a really good night as well. Oh, we should talk about England as well because they're playing a friendly tonight, but it's significant. And we'll be talking darts, Luke Littler. He had an exceptional night in the Premier League last night. So that's all to come.
I urge you not to look away. If Hamas hands the hostages over, they will end this conflict. The world has been watching.
Good to see you again. How are you?
Did she say how he was?
The conditions are awful.
The jets were ordered to come back. Historic day here today. How will you respond if India does launch airstrikes?
They will be all out to war.
I'm just going to put some body armor on. I'm Yalda Hakim.
I'm Cordelia Lynch, Sky's Asia correspondent, based here in Bangkok.
These slums, once gripped by fear and death.
There is far less bloodshed now, but it hasn't gone away.
Who's asking you to kill?
The police will give me the orders, and after I kill the target, I throw the gun away.
We try our best to uncover and unpick a fast-changing and deeply complex region.
These large waterways provided an excellent source of body disposal.
This is the Buriganga River, where victims who'd allegedly been shot dead were dumped.
Sheikh Hasina, how confident are you that she will stand trial?
She will stand trial, there's no doubt about that.
We're going to take you to the very heart of a criminal network, going undercover inside Southeast Asia's scam centres for the very first time.
We won't have any problems with police, it's okay. Just seen Imran Khan leave, and as we understand it, he's just been shot in the leg.
They have decided that the only way they'll allow elections is if I'm inside jail or killed.
Sky News get the full story first.
Chinese vessels start encircling the boat we're on, blocking its path.
The Chinese are now deploying water cannons, firing it directly towards our boat. We've discovered doctors across Delhi dishing out pills like this, claiming they will provide a lifelong cure for homosexuality.
Rohingya people fleeing an escalating civil war.
The situation here in Cox's is desperate. An already insecure place does feel a lot more precarious.
The best thing about being a Sky News journalist? I'm going to take you behind the scenes here for Election Night Live. They have gone up and up. Big Sky News journalist. Ed Conway. Sky News, is anyone going to talk to us? Mortgage rates did go up very sharply during your time in office. Here it is. First off, just the scale of what we're looking at. Our data shows it's been happening. Question is, why it hasn't been stopped.
Hello again. Well, Jack is here with all the sport. We're going to kick off, aren't we, with the World Cup playoffs and the heartbreak.
Yeah, 2 chances for the home nations, 3 of the home nations to get to the World Cup. The first one was last night, and they all fell at the first hurdle, and it was really heartbreaking. Particularly for Wales, they were playing Bosnia-Herzegovina, and they were well in control of that match, and they really were told by their manager, avoid the chaos. And Bosnia were quite physical, were obviously trying to sort of bash them up a bit in the first half. That's what it looked like. And then they got this wonder goal, and you thought, oh, they've got this. They've really got this. And then up pops Edin Dzeko, 40. He's no longer just called Edin Dzeko. He's called Edin Dzeko 40 because he is 40 years of age and still playing amazing football. And then, you know, it all kind of unravelled. The Republic of Ireland were playing Czechia. And again, they were well in control of that match. They were 2 goals to the good. Maybe even slightly fortunately, because one of the goals was an own goal. But Troy Parrott, who's been their talisman in getting to this point, got a penalty. So 2-0 up. You think, great, the Republic of Ireland are going to qualify for a World Cup for the first time since 2002. And yet they let the Czechs back into it, and it was 2-2, and then it was extra time, and then it went to penalties, and there were 2 missed penalties from the Republic. They didn't practice penalties, apparently. And we can't really practice them, but they didn't. And they went out on penalties, and that's
heartbreaking.
It's heartbreaking when you're in a position to win a match. When you're 2-0 up, you should really try and see it out. Anyway, let's have a look at the action from the Cardiff, from the Wales match. Have a look at this. Wales taking the lead in the 51st minute. It was a wonder goal. It was an absolute smasher of a goal from Dan James. And despite aggressive tactics from Bosnia, Wales remained very much in control of the match, with Carl Darlow pulling off an incredible save to keep Wales ahead. But Wales were left to regret a string of missed chances to extend their lead, and they paid for it when Edin Dzeko equalised with 4 minutes to go to force extra time. The extra time then went to penalties, both sides exhausted. Brennan Johnson and Neco Williams missed theirs for Wales, leaving Bosnia to score theirs and go through 4-2 from the shootout. So Bosnia will now face Italy on Tuesday for a place in the World Cup finals. And they're just going to really be regretting so much this morning. They had 19 shots on target and hit the woodwork twice. I mean...
So any fans of those teams are going to want to look away now, because we're going to talk about England in their build-up to the World Cup.
Well, can I just mention Northern Ireland as well? Let's have a look at this. Northern Ireland, I don't think many expected them to win this match against Italy. They were beaten 2-0 away. Second half goals from Newcastle, Sandra Tonali, and former Everton forward Mosey Keane ended their hopes of reaching the finals for the first time in 40 years. But the average age of that Northern Ireland squad, 22 and a half.
Oh, wow. Oh, my goodness. Plenty of years to...
Very young, very young.
So
England, Uruguay. As you were saying, it's a friendly tonight against Uruguay at Wembley. You're thinking, well, does it really matter? Well, yes, it does, because there's only 4 more friendly matches to go before Thomas Tuchel is right into the World Cup with his squad. And this is the last camp he will have before he picks his squad for that World Cup. Ben White has been recalled to that squad, which I think is I think it's quite controversial. I mean, this is an opportunity for the players who he might not pick, but he's saying, here's your last chance. Maybe I'll pick you if you impress me. And so the key players like Kane and, well, all the key players that you can think of, like Declan Rice, are not involved in this particular squad tonight. They arrive tomorrow for the match against Japan next week. So it's an opportunity to impress. Ben White's not played for England since he walked out of the Qatar World Cup 4 years ago, citing personal issues. No one really knows what happened. A lot of people suspect a fallout with management. He did not play for England under Gareth Southgate again. So he's been given a phone call. He's been called up, perhaps controversially, ahead of Trent Alexander-Arnold. And Thomas Tuchel asking people not to boo him at Wembley tonight. But this is what Thomas Tuchel had to say about why he's made this selection.
Difficult choice and maybe a hard choice. And maybe to a certain degree, maybe unfair, but these choices have to be made. The choice was for Ben White because I saw him play here in the final, in the cup final against Manchester City. He played the Champions League match, I think, before, and was straight away back to his old self.
Yeah, so I mean, so many choices, but he'll
does
make
have so many choices. He does now. He's picked so many.
Can we talk about Luke Littler?
Yeah, he had an amazing night in Premier League of Darts last night. Why it was amazing was because he did the big fish checkout of 170, which is the highest checkout in darts is 170.
Okay.
Very hard to do.
And that's called the big fish.
Treble 20 and a bullseye. And he did it twice in the final last
unstoppable.
night. I mean, extraordinary. So here you go. Beating Michael van Gerwen in the final, it was a very tight final, but he just makes it look so easy.
Oh, he's so confident.
There you go. There's the big fish celebration.
That was him reeling in the big fish.
That was him reeling in the big fish, which he did twice, which is quite hard to do. What is interesting about this is he was trailing in the Premier League of darts, and he wasn't, not the top of the leaderboard, but now he is at the top of the leaderboard, and you just think, well, when you're playing like that, you can pretty much dominate anything.
And he's always cool as a cucumber. Jackie, we'll see you again next hour, and we'll be back at the top of the hour with all the top stories. Don't go away.
The best thing about being a Sky News journalist? I'm going to take you behind the scenes here for Election Night Live. They have gone up and up. Big Sky News journalist. Ed Conway, Sky News, is anyone going to talk to us?
Mortgage rates did go up very sharply during your time in office.
Here it is. First off, just the scale of what we're looking at.
Our data shows it's been happening. Question is, why it hasn't been stopped.
Hello and a very good morning. It's 8 o'clock. This is Mornings on Sky News. I'm Anna.
And I'm Leah. Thanks for starting your day with us. This is how things are looking.
President Trump's 5-day deadline to Iran slips, giving Tehran another 10 days to reopen the strait or face energy infrastructure destruction.
We asked the Prime Minister about the slew of recent insults he's faced from President Trump and hear how his position on Britain in the war won't change.
An hour a day, and then it's time to put your iPad down. We've got the first ever official guidance on screen time for kids.
We're also talking about President Putin's push for private donations as the coffers of his war machine apparently run dry.
And we all like words of encouragement, but we're going to hear how AI chatbots are sending people into delusions and how dangerous that could be.
Hello, good morning. President Trump's 5-day deadline to Iran has now slipped a further 10 days. He'd given Iran until tonight to reopen the Strait of Hormuz to global shipping or else see the country's energy infrastructure destroyed.
Yes, and we're going to get more on that in a moment. But first, Donald Trump was the topic of conversation in an exclusive interview with the Prime Minister. Sakir sat down with our political editor, Beth Rigby.
You are the Prime Minister of Great Britain, and for many people in the UK, many people listening to this podcast or watching it, insulting you is like insulting our country. Do you understand why some people feel like that?
There's undoubtedly been, some hard decisions over the last few weeks. I have been clear I'm not going to join the war. There's a clear difference, therefore, of opinion between me and President Trump. My own view is that a lot of what is said and done has been to put pressure on me to change my mind, but I'm not going to do so because I'm the British Prime Minister and I have to act in the British national interest.
For me, what I think, and maybe this is because I'm a bit too up close and I spend every sort of moment watching every twist and turn of the Starmer-Trump relationship, I think there was quite a long period, and I sort of said it there, did he underestimate you? Did he think that you trying to accommodate him was weakness? Because I think there was quite a long time that Trump used to say quite outlandish things. You know, all that stuff he said about Sadiq Khan, stuff that Starmer would have found absolutely ludicrous but also offensive, and he didn't really stand up and challenge it. He just let a lot of stuff wash over him. So for me, for him to kind of stand up in the sense of saying, I'm not going to be moved, I'm not going to be pushed around, I know what's going on, I do think it's a bit of a change in position, and I do think it's partly because he's probably encouraged by how the public are responding to Trump.
Scan the QR code to listen to Beth's full sit-down with the Prime Minister on electoral dysfunction podcast. You can also watch it on YouTube too.
Yeah, well worth a listen, that. Meanwhile, President Trump will hold off bombing Iran's energy infrastructure, instead announcing a further 10 days pause. This part of his ultimatum to Tehran to reopen the Strait of Hormuz.
Yeah, the current state of talks between the two countries remain unclear. Let's speak to our correspondent, Sally Lockwood, who's in Dubai. Great to see you, Sally, as always. How is this news being received where you are?
I mean, certainly a sense of relief, I think, among Gulf states who always want to see de-escalation when it comes to this war, despite the very difficult position they've been put in, coming under daily attack for nearly 4 weeks now. It will be exactly 4 weeks tomorrow that Iran's neighbours, like the UAE, have been enduring daily attacks during this war. So, yes, I think it will come as a big relief, certainly among residents here. It's come as a big relief that Donald Trump has kicked this can down the road another 10 days before we have to see what it means then. Of course, Donald Trump threatened to attack Iran's power plants if they don't reopen the Strait of Hormuz. He extended that deadline to around this weekend, and he's now extended it again until the 6th of April at 8 p.m. Eastern time. I'm not sure why he gives such specific deadlines like that, because it really does, box him in to sticking to them and then, perhaps having to respond in some way. And there is a lot of concern about exactly what that response would be if Donald Trump feels compelled to carry out these threats. And of course, we know as well that Iran not only is watching extremely closely troop movements into the region from the US, they have also responded and said, you know, if you attack our power plants, we will attack US and Israeli domestic energy infrastructure and desalination plants in the region, which would be significant escalation. And that is something that has now been kicked down the road by another 10 days. It is a sense of relief, but there are also concerning reports as well. The Wall Street Journal reporting that the Pentagon is now about to deploy another 10,000 US ground troops to the region. And of course, we're expecting 5,000 Marines to arrive very shortly, as well as the 82nd Airborne Division, which has been deployed as well. Now, the same outlet, the Wall Street Journal, has reported that Iranian state news is saying that they're readying 1 million ground troops in Iran in order to prepare for a potential US ground invasion. So at the moment, you know, we're hearing America saying that talks are still going very well and that, you know, talks are ongoing with the Iranian side. You know, Iran is denying that these talks are taking place. And meanwhile, we're seeing a lot of signaling that there is military, you know, readiness and preparations taking place for this war to potentially escalate in around 10 days' time. We'll have to wait and see. It's certainly, you know, like I've been saying in recent days, a case of holding our breath.
Absolutely, Sally. Really interesting. Thanks very much indeed. And Sally explains so well that kind of those mixed messages, I guess, that we're getting. We've got Donald Trump saying that the talks, as she said, were going very well. That's why he's given Iran another 10 days, he says, for them to open up the strait or risk having their energy infrastructure bombed. But there does seem to be a big gap at the moment, doesn't there? Because the US has put forward this 15-point plan, which includes lots of demands that Iran has rejected many times before. Iran, in response, have put forward 5-point plan, which, again, the US and Israel wouldn't find acceptable. So it does feel like the two sides are a long way apart at the moment, certainly in public. And there's a lot of distrust between the two sides too.
Do you know, I was just thinking back to Monday. I was on air on Sky News, and that was the moment that Donald Trump published that message in capital letters that he was giving Iran 5 extra days. It was an extraordinary moment because immediately after, Iran came out and said, well, actually, we're not in talks at all. The bombs are still dropping. So that's inconsistency, which is so hard for other world leaders, including our Prime Minister, to react and know the footing and where they should be. But it's an extraordinary time, isn't it? 7 days can feel like a year.
Yeah. And it'll be really interesting to see how the markets react as well.
Yes.
It's been a bit unsettled. But let's turn right now to the impact of the war on Lebanon. The Deputy Prime Minister has told Sky News that Israel is committing war crimes through its ongoing bombardment of his country.
We're documenting every violation of international humanitarian law to the best of our abilities. And there is no doubt that Israel is committing war crimes, in my view, is violating the Geneva Accords, you know, starting with the 2 basic principles in the international humanitarian law, the principle of distinction between combatants and civilians, and the principle of proportionality. Neither of these 2 basic principles of international humanitarian law are respected by Israel, and Israel has a track record of just ignoring such 2 principles. I mean, look at Gaza.
Medics in Lebanon have told Sky News they also fear that Israel's campaign against Hezbollah risks turning the country into another Gaza.
Well, our special correspondent, Alex Crawford, is in southern Lebanon and witnessed the medical professionals who are becoming victims of this war. Here's a clip from her report.
Patching up Lebanon's victims of war is a long and heartbreaking process. And right now, there's a constant stream of them. This patient, like so many of the casualties, was wounded in an Israeli airstrike which struck in the dead of night whilst he slept with his family. He now has 65% burns across his body, which will require months of treatment.
And the doctors tell us they're seeing rising numbers of casualties, not just civilians, but amongst them, many children.
The medics are mostly volunteers, among them 2 British doctors, both of whom have worked in Gaza, and a doctor in exile from Gaza. And they all see alarming similarities between what's happening there and now what's going on in Lebanon.
What is being done here is exactly the systemic destruction, systemic gradual occupation, as happened in Gaza. Started with evacuation of all people displaced to the north, and then systemic, deliberate destruction of all infrastructure, mainly the hospitals too.
The doctors want more action from world leaders to ensure health workers are protected.
International humanitarian law has been ignored, and nobody is doing anything about it. There's, I'd say there's some words, a little bit of, strong words occasionally, but as usual, no action. And this is, it feels like it's just become accepted now, that it's become, that's okay, it's accepted to do that.
Dr. Potokar set up the burns unit at Sidon's government hospital, and among his patients is a father whose teenage son was killed and he was left badly burned. He shows us a picture of his son Jad.
I don't speak about him. He is 15 years old. I don't feel. No feeling. I lose my boy.
He can barely talk with grief and shock. Another family destroyed in the middle of the night, and he's overwhelmed with loss right now. He says his home in central Beirut was one of 2 hit in a high-rise apartment block. All were civilians. This picture shows the family at a relative's wedding. His wife and older teenage son survived unharmed. Jad, seen here on the right, was killed instantly. The Israeli military says it's targeting Hezbollah militants with precision strikes.
Israel liars. Israel are bull. Israel are big liars.
Well, Israel's military has said it's targeting Hezbollah infrastructure and say the ground operation it's launched in Lebanon is a defensive effort to protect northern Israel from Hezbollah attacks. Sky News has also approached the IDF for comment, and Alex's full report is available on the Sky News website. Do take a look.
Yeah, well, worth watching that. Right now, let's get more on the appointment of Lord Mandelson as UK ambassador to the US. We're hearing how he's been asked to hand over messages from his personal phone as part of the probe. So let's find out more from Rob, who's here. Is he being asked to hand over his phone because Morgan McSweeney, Keir Starmer's former chief of staff, has lost his phone?
So Number 10 say no. They say it was always the plan that they'd come and basically ask for messages off Peter Mandelson's personal phone, as well as getting the work messages off the work phone as well. Of course, the concern is that because Morgan McSweeney had his phone nicked in mid-October, then there may be a chunk of messages from that phone that was his work phone that relate to this Commons motion to basically hand over all this information, including messages. So if you can't get them from one side, can you go and get them from the other side? Now, Number 10 say no, it's not linked to that the Cabinet Office that's putting together all of this information has an information gathering plan, and they're working their way through that. And this was always going to be part of it. We shouldn't have to wait too long to find out, actually. I would have thought that this gets published before this Parliament ends. And I think this is going to be a bigger set of information that we get about Peter Mandelson compared to the first one. And it's potentially the more risky one, I think,
because it's
for the government as well. I think it could get into the gory detail.
And then just the wider issue, Beth's sit-down interview with Keir Starmer and that relationship under strain, US-UK relationship, I thought was quite an interesting insight from the Prime Minister, Rob.
Yeah, and it felt like Keir Starmer was really going out of his way to say, look, I am really, 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 really sorry about what I did.
Appointing Peter Mandelson.
Appointing Peter Mandelson, yeah. Look, will it work? It does come back to the fact that you did it in the first place, and then when some information had started to emerge, you stood up at Prime Minister's questions and said you had confidence in him. So I think that damage on judgment is already really there.
I'm going to cut in. I'm so sorry, Rob, but apparently we're going to hear from Yvette Cooper, the Foreign Secretary, who is in France at a G7 meeting. Let's listen in.
At a time when we have also seen Iran and Russia provide each other with capabilities and support, and we will cover other issues, including the humanitarian crisis in Sudan and critical minerals supplies, which are so crucial to all of our economies. At a time of such global instability and insecurity, it is so important that partnerships like the G7 and other countries that have been invited to join us today come together, because we know it is the partnerships that we build abroad that make us stronger and make our security and economy stronger back at home. Thank you very much.
Foreign Secretary, Russia is helping Iran, and we know that the closure of the Strait of Hormuz is helping Russia's war in Ukraine. How interlinked are the two conflicts?
Well, we're deeply concerned about the links between Russia and Iran that have been long-standing in terms of shared capabilities. For example, drones provided to Russia by Iran that have been involved in the conflict by Ukraine. But we have also seen support from Russia provided to Iran in the Middle East conflict as well. And that's why I think as G7 countries we have a shared interest in coming together to discuss these issues and the way that we need to protect our global economy from countries that want to weaponise our economy against us.
Foreign Secretary, what conditions would be necessary for the UK and other nations to take part in a mission in the Strait of Hormuz? Would there need to be a cessation of hostilities first?
Well, we need to see a swift resolution to this conflict that restores the regional stability. That needs to include the Strait of Hormuz, and that's why we have more than 30 countries come together to talk about the processes that are needed to ensure the reopening of the Strait of Hormuz and also the protection for international shipping. And that's why, look, we have taken the approach of supporting defensive action, but also we've taken a different approach on the offensive action that has taken place as part of this conflict. But what we need is that partnership, including the diplomacy, including some of the discussions that we will have today, because frankly, Iran cannot be able to just hold the global economy hostage as a result of a strait which is about international shipping routes and a freedom of navigation that has been so strongly supported at the United Nations, but also by countries across the world. Thank you very much. Thank you.
So, Yvette Cooper there, ahead of the foreign ministers' meeting of the G7 being held in France, being asked there about Iran, and she talked about the importance of the G7 working together, given the conflict. She said at a time of global insecurity and instability, it was important that they have meetings like this. She said she was concerned about the relationship between Russia and Iran, and she stressed that Britain was taking a defensive role in this conflict rather than an offensive role. But meanwhile, efforts were being made to open up the Strait of Hormuz.
Yeah, we'll be keeping an eye on this story, of course, throughout the morning. But should we talk about AI?
Yeah.
And whether it's messing with your mind?
Yes, because it's something that our tech correspondent Roland has been looking at after a report revealed the scale of what's become known as AI psychosis.
Yeah, perhaps most interesting is who did the report, actually. It's Anthropic, one of the world's leading AI companies.
Have you heard of AI psychosis? It's a controversial term, but the idea is simple. Can AI pull people away from reality, especially in their weakest moments? Like when people came to Anthropic's AI Claude, saying that it had divine callings, and Claude responded with phrases like, "This is real, you're not crazy." Or when people told Claude they'd seen coincidences or glitches that made them feel like they were being watched, and Claude responded with the phrases like, "Confirmed, smoking gun, this is stalking." Those examples are real. They come from a paper put out recently by Anthropic and the University of Toronto, which used AI to scan through 1.5 million conversations with Claude from December 2025. The paper didn't call what was happening AI psychosis. They called it disempowerment. And the most common form of severe disempowerment, they called reality distortion. But here's the most unsettling part of all this. People appear to like reality distortion. Conversations with the potential for severe or moderate reality distortion got more thumbs up, not less. There have been reports of this kind of thing with all the major AI companies. And it makes me wonder, can we handle this? Is the human brain capable of dealing with AI that is powerful, but more importantly, persuasive? I spoke to one of the Anthropic researchers behind this paper, Miles McCain, and he set out the core problem behind all this.
AI systems telling you what you want to hear, not appropriately pushing back against you when it seems like you are wrong.
That's the key idea here. AI telling you what you want to hear.
We found that, of course, this behavior was quite rare, but there were concerning scenarios where Claude was enabling this, which is why I think it's so important to study this and look at this problem straight in the eye.
In Anthropic's data, around 1 in 1,000 conversations had the potential for severe reality distortion. And that might not sound like much, but at the scale these platforms operate, it adds up fast. Anthropic reckon that if a chatbot has 100 million conversations every day, then you get 76,000 conversations with the potential for distortion daily. And remember, this is real people we're talking about. People reaching out in isolation, in pain, in fear, anxiety, reaching out to a friendly voice on the other end, and then potentially being nudged in the wrong direction. Can the AI companies fix it? Well, it's not going to be easy because AIs are so complex, they don't really understand why they do what they do.
As of today, this is an open problem. We actually don't know why Claude responds as it does consistently.
And then there's the human problem, because a big feedback signal these companies rely on is us.
We found in this paper that people tended to prefer the potentially concerning responses.
Such an interesting subject, and you can watch Roland's full report online, and he's going to be joining us in about an hour's time to chat to us about it a little bit more.
Yeah, be really interesting. But let's return now to the war in Iran, where new Supreme Leader Mojtaba Khamenei has yet to be seen in public. Amid reports he may have been injured by some of the first strikes in the conflict. He's the regime's third Ayatollah since the 1979 Islamic Revolution, which transformed the local politics of the country with a complex history.
And here to tell us all about it is Robert Templer, who's former International Crisis Group Director and author of The Shah's Party and the Iranian Revolution that followed. Very good morning to you. Thanks so much for coming in. So you're obviously an expert in the fall of the Shah and the Iranian Revolution that followed. With your knowledge of the beginnings of the regime, are you surprised by the situation we're now in the Iran war?
Not really, because this was a regime that came into power with an incredible sense of paranoia and uncertainty. Right from the start, they thought they were going to be overthrown by a coup, as the United States had done in 1953. They built their entire system for resilience, for regime survival. And that's been going on for 45 more years now. And they've had this very deep-seated paranoia, which has led them to really spread power around the country, spread military force, develop this enormous militia to keep their own people under control. And they've shown themselves time and again willing to kill as many people as it takes to stay in power.
It's so interesting, isn't it? 90 billion people in Iran, many of them strongly reject the regime. From what you're reading, Robert, from the current situation, how close do you feel idealistically that we will see any kind of regime change from within Iran?
Well, the Iranian people, I think, the vast majority of them want a new government. They want to be a normal country. They want water to come out of the taps and electricity to come on when they press a light switch. They're really fed up with the economic collapse and with the way this regime behaves. And they want normal relations with other countries. But the regime is really willing to kill huge numbers of people. In January, there were 2 days where the number of killings was quite possibly the highest daily slaughter by a state since World War II. So this is a level of violence that, is incredibly extreme. And so we're unlikely to see a really significant kind of popular uprising. I think what is possible is an elite split, where one side of the IRGC, of the Revolutionary Guard, or the military decides that enough is enough and they need to change this theocracy. But I think it's unlikely, unfortunately, that there will be a popular uprising and takeover from below.
It's one of the problems that the opposition has been crushed in Iran. So there isn't one figure that people can rally behind.
Yes, that is a big problem. They're all in jail or They have been killed. There are huge numbers of political executions every year in Iran. It's an extremely violent regime in the way it uses the death penalty. Some of the key figures like Narges Mohammadi, who won the Nobel Peace Prize, she's in prison. She's cut off from networks and supporters. They have been very tough in preventing anyone from emerging as a potential leader of the opposition.
And you've spoken about widespread frustration from within Iran. You know, normal, ordinary people who wanted to talk out. We've seen what happens when they do. What are the biggest risks now that people feel about even coming out on the streets to protest, to show their disdain for the regime?
Well, in Tehran recently, people were throwing kind of garbage food waste at the Basiji, the militiamen who were guarding various checkpoints around the city. And one of the Basiji spray painted on a building, "If you carry on doing this, we will come back and kill everyone in this building." So the level of threat from the Basiji, from the state, is enormous. They've been going into hospitals and shooting wounded people. They've been executing young men in particular to send a message to communities, particularly minority communities like the Kurds, Arabs, Azeris, that no uprising is going to be tolerated. And the various figures who are once in a while presented as potential moderates, some of these people have been involved in the repression of every single kind of popular movement going back to 2009. So these are not really people who are amenable to political change.
Given its history and what you know about it, how do you see this ending, given the level of resilience that you've talked about, that the regime has sort of built in? You know, when one leader gets taken out, they've got several others waiting in the wings to take over. Do you think Iran will carry on whatever the US and Israel decide to do next?
I think it most likely will. I think it's very unlikely that we're going to see a dramatic change now. Having said that, regimes are always rock solid until suddenly they're not, and you never quite know when that's going to be. But this is a regime that's going to be extremely difficult to change. I think, unfortunately, what will happen is we're going to see a further decline in the economy there. We're going to see people really suffering with food shortages, water shortages, all of these major problems. I think life is going to get much, much tougher for the Iranian people. That's a tragedy, and I think ultimately they will rise up again because there is such a level of frustration and fury within this country against its own government.
OK, Robert, thank you so much for talking to us.
Yeah, thanks.
Still to come on Mornings, we're going to be talking about new guidelines from the government about screen times for under 5s. We'll have the Children's Commissioner for England, Dame Rachel D'Souza, in the studio.
Now, how much time are your children spending looking at screens? I mean, it's an issue that we're debating all the time in households up and down the country. But now we've got our first ever official guidance. So for under 2-year-olds, screens should be avoided altogether. This is the government guidance. That's unless they're being used to help encourage bonding or conversation.
Yeah, that's right. And children under 5 should only be allowed an hour of screen time a day and avoid them completely at meal times and before they go to bed.
And the guidance also says that if children have to watch screens, it should be when they're with an adult so they can ask questions.
Well, earlier, Children's Minister Joss McAllister told us the new guidance is designed to help parents, not make them feel judged.
We're responding to the fact that parents have been asking in quite large numbers for more help with these issues, and that's why the government is undertaking a big consultation at the moment on social media for teenagers. It's why we've taken lots of action very recently on AI tools that we've got lots of concerns about for children as well. And it's why today we're publishing helpful guidance looking at the best available evidence for younger children about screen time use. There's no judgment in it, but we want to help create some new social norms where parents can know what does the evidence suggest, what does it say, and therefore what might they be able to do to help their child achieve and develop well in the first few years of their life.
Well, I'm very pleased to say that the Children's Commissioner, Dame Rachel D'Souza, is here with us in the studio. Very good morning to you. And you've co-chaired the group of advisors, haven't you, that's been looking into this issue of screen time and its effect on kids. So before we talk about the details of the guidance and what that means, what did you learn about why it's important to try to put some sort of, guidelines in, some sort of restrictions potentially? How important is it for children's
Absolutely. Look, I, as Children's Commissioner, I see thousands of parents, thousands of babies, thousands of children, and the parents always say to me, just give us some guidance, Rachel. Are we doing the right thing? What's the right thing? And there is real concern and worry out there about, our children, is my child watching too much? Is it going to affect their development? So I was really pleased when the government asked me to get involved, and I convened the best scientists from right across the land, but also went out and talked to hundreds of parents and said, what's your life like? What would work? What do you think? So I think we've got a really nice piece of guidance, and it's important. I mean, I'm a mum, my son's 30, and he still says to me, Mum, you used to use the phone at the table. And I say, at 30, he said, why did you do that? So I'm not here to guilt anyone else. We've all made the mistakes. We've all done that. But what we want to do is try to do better and give parents really clear advice.
And it's important, isn't it? When you're a new parent in particular, there's so many guidelines about what you feed, how the baby should sleep. For you, what's the one single bit of this guidance that a parent, a new parent in particular, should really take away from this?
So number one is don't feel you have to use any sort of tech at all or screens to make your baby cleverer or better. You don't need to do that. In fact, what we've found from the science is the opposite is true. If you do too much spending time on screens too young, their development's affected. Because how do babies learn? It's by watching you, by playing, by interacting.
Yeah, so what's the main areas? Is it communication?
Correct. So it's speech communication is learnt through that simple interaction with you. It's like, look at the clouds. What about the colours? It's that simple stuff. All of us remember when the day the bin man comes and our toddler's out there like, the bin man. Those are the things. Those are the things. You don't need screens, and that's why, because of that worry and that precautionary principle of, there's a lot we don't know about tech, so let's take care. You really do not need. We don't recommend any screen time under 2. It's different if you've got baby on your knee, toddler on your knee, and you're showing them a picture on your iPad of there's granny in Australia. That's different. That's interactive. That's warm. That's fine. But actually giving them a screen, setting them away, no. So 0 to 2, don't do it. No need to do it, unless it's interactive. With the 2 to 5s, it's not much different. We're saying, OK, an hour, fine, but break it into 10-minute sections and make it interactive and co-watch. Sit with each other. And if you're reading Noddy, or you're doing a little interactive thing, that's fine. Or if you've got a Hoover, you've got to get the hoovering done and all the kids coming home, so let's just do 10 minutes there, fine, but be really careful with it.
Well, you kind of hit on the thing that I was going to ask you about, because there'll be a lot of people watching and go, I totally get it, makes sense, but I'm really stretched. I do a full-time job. I can't afford childcare. Sometimes I need a break. I've got too much to do. And if they're watching something educational, isn't it fine?
Yeah, and I mean, again, what we're saying is that 2 to 5, there's little 10-minute bits, or absolutely fine. Or they're sitting watching something with a sibling, and it's exactly what it is. Absolutely fine. But I think what we're saying is, well, first of all, I don't want to guilt any parent in that situation, but at the same time, I think there are places we can start making space, which is lunchtime. Think of me and my 30-year-old son saying, Mum, you used to pick up the phone for work during dinner time. Don't make my mistake. Let's try and make those meal times, for conversation and for family and for showing them you care, those sorts of things. Before bed, we don't want overstimulation, and be really careful about what you are allowing your child to see. Under 5s should not be seeing high stimulation, social media type, flashing lights, difficult things. It's the only thing they should be seeing is that slow, someone singing a song, that quiet, something that's age appropriate. We need to be really careful with our teens
attention
as well.
spans being the problem, and also winding down?
Overstimulation, but also, we don't know enough about what that would do to their brains, to their eyes, to their development. So, why take the risk? I think you need to be really careful. Especially while we've got our kids as little, let's try and keep that, when we've got that control, keep it, because the decisions are not going to get easier later on.
Yeah, no, it's
lots
really
of lessons for all of us.
No, completely. I do this thing in my house where the kids can earn credits for 5 minutes of screen time. That's in the kitchen with everyone around, and that might be watching number blocks on the iPlayer, or my son loves kids' YouTube with Dr. Bionics, which talks him through why the flu happens. And so it's not about a ban or completely scrapping it, but it's about working with tech in the household with your children as adults.
I think you need to work on me a bit.
We all feel that, don't we?
I need some rewards for staying off screens. Dame Rachel D'Souza,
thank you.
Really good to have you in the studio.
Thank
you so much. Thank you. Now then, we're going to talk a little bit about Russia, which has obviously been slightly forgotten in the war in Iran, or certainly out of the headlines to the same extent as it has been. But Russia's oligarchs are reportedly being asked to donate to the country's defence budget by Vladimir Putin as the cost of the war in Ukraine soars.
Yeah, this is just all according to a Russian news outlet. This was a closed-door meeting. It was held with leading business people. Russia's elite, essentially, being asked to donate to help, which I suppose leans into any pressures that Russia might be feeling with this war in Ukraine. The boots on ground, the kit, the war weaponry too. And they're being asked, we're hearing, according to this reporting, £121 million to donate. You can imagine that meeting.
921, yeah, even more. Yeah, exactly. And
so
they're also reporting that at least 2 businessmen have told Putin that they're willing to make that contribution after talks yesterday. But obviously, President Putin still pushing ahead with his war in Ukraine, something that we shouldn't forget.
No, absolutely. We're going to move on to quite a sad story now, and it's all about a toddler in Gaza being released from Israeli custody. They've been returned to their family with suspected torture wounds. Jawad Abu Nassar was detained alongside his father by Israeli forces and held for 10 hours. Now, doctors who examined the 21-month-old say the wounds on his leg, were consistent with cigarette burns and even signs of torture.
Well, the Israeli military denies abusing the child and says his father, who remains missing, was a Hamas member who used him as a human shield. It's not publicly provided evidence to support that claim.
Yeah, here's our international correspondent, John Sparks. And just a warning, of course, his report contains some distressing images.
A bottle of milk and a pair of wary eyes. The eyes of a little boy from Gaza called Jawad Abu Nassar. The child was held for 10 hours by the Israeli Defense Forces, caught in a conflict that has no end. On his return, his mother found these. Circular wounds of a similar size in similar locations on both legs. They are, according to the medical report, marks of torture caused in whole or in part by lit cigarettes.
When I took his trousers off, I saw his legs. There were entry and exit wounds right here. It seems like they used a metal tool to pierce him, and they put out cigarettes on his little legs. We only realized the extent the next day.
This story begins 1 week ago when Jawad's father, Osama, took his son to buy goods at the market for Eid, the Muslim holiday. But neighbours said Mr. Abu Nasser went the wrong way, turning east towards the Yellow Line, the new frontier that leaves much of Gaza in Israeli hands. The IDF fired shots when the pair got close, and soldiers ordered him to put the boy down. The boy's grandfather tried to catch them, but Mr. Abu Nasser had gone too far.
Osama was ordered to put the child down, and he did it. He kept walking, leaving about 100 meters between them. No father would do that, not even a few steps away. It's unimaginable. Your kid would try to come back to you. He wasn't in the right state of mind.
Osama wasn't acting normally, says his family, traumatized after losing his home and a child during his wife's pregnancy. He seemed unaware of what he was doing. But in a detailed response to our inquiries, the IDF paints a very different picture. When Mr. Abu Nasser was apprehended by Israeli troops, he admitted to being a member of Hamas, they say, and they accused the boy's father of using his son as a human shield. Mr. Abu Nasser was detained, while his son was handed over to the Red Cross, the exchange filmed by the Israeli military.
Okay, he's stable, vitals stable, walking, can jump, he's happy.
A soldier says his vitals are stable, walking and talking, and he's happy. But here's the doctor who conducted the examination of the child 1 day after he was returned to his family. Dr. Bisan Ahmed is looking at a copy of the report that she compiled.
I observed multiple deep, uniform lesions on his lower body, which are clinically consistent with deliberate cigarette burns used as a form of physical torture. These are deep, second-degree burns that may reach the nerves.
We put these findings to the IDF and they denied it, calling the allegations completely unfounded. They admit to firing near Mr. Abu Nasser and his son. They say it was intended to move them away from the Yellow Line. The gunfire, well, it likely caused splinters, they suggest, which resulted in minor injuries to the child. Despite a ceasefire signed in October, the war in Gaza continues, and it's left its mark on a 1-year and 9-month-old child. A boy called Jawad, now too rattled to leave the front door. John Sparks, Sky News in Jerusalem.
Let's take a look at the weather now.
You're looking happy.
Well, the forecast looks good.
So you've sorted the travel insurance then?
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors Sky News Weather.
Well, the next few days will remain on the cold side with showers or longer spells of rain. England and Wales will be rather cloudy this morning with outbreaks of mostly light rain, but the far southeast does look dry. Elsewhere, expect plenty of sunshine, but showers will develop widely away from southern and eastern Scotland and the southeast of Ireland. By lunchtime, Cumbria and Northumberland will brighten up and it won't be as cold as recent days. More of northern England and Wales will turn sunny through the afternoon, but expect a few showers there too.
All Clear Travel Insurance proudly sponsors Sky News Weather.
Pleased to say Jack is back with all the sport.
Oh, it's a bit sad this morning, though.
I
isn't
know,
it? Really
actually.
sad. You know, 3 home nations in action last night, trying to take the last 2 steps to get to the World Cup, and all of them fell at that hurdle. And it could have been such a different story. So no Ireland, no Northern Ireland, no Wales at the World Cup. We'll also be talking about England, who played tonight, and Luke Littner. He had a stormy night in the Premier League of darts. All to come.
I urge you not to look away. If Hamas hands the hostages over, they will end this conflict. The world has been watching. Good to see you again. How are you? Did she say how he was?
The conditions are awful.
The jets were ordered to come back. Historic day here today. How will you respond if India does launch airstrikes?
They'll be all out to war.
I'm just going to put some body armor on. I'm Yalda Hakim.
I'm Cordelia Lynch, Sky's Asia correspondent, based here in Bangkok.
These slums, once gripped by fear and death.
There is far less bloodshed now, but it hasn't gone away.
Who's asking you to kill?
The police will give me the orders, and after I kill the target, I throw the gun away.
We try our best to uncover and unpick a fast-changing and deeply complex region.
These large waterways provided an excellent source of body disposal.
This is the Buriganga River, where victims who'd allegedly been shot dead were dumped. Sheikh Hasina, how confident are you that she will stand trial?
She will stand trial, there's no doubt about that.
We're going to take you to the very heart of a criminal network, going undercover inside Southeast Asia's scam centres for the very first time.
We won't have any problems with police, it's okay. Just seen Imran Khan leave, and as we understand it, he's just been shot in the leg.
They have decided that the only way they'll allow elections is if I'm inside jail or killed.
Sky News get the full story first.
Chinese vessels start encircling the boat we're on, blocking its path.
The Chinese are now deploying water cannons, firing it directly towards our boat. We've discovered doctors across Delhi dishing out pills like this, claiming they will provide a lifelong cure for homosexuality.
Rohingya people fleeing an escalating civil war.
The situation here in Cox's is desperate. An already insecure place does feel a lot more precarious.
The best thing about being a Sky News journalist?
I'm going to take you behind the scenes here for Election Night Live. They have gone up and up.
Being a Sky News journalist.
Ed Conway, Sky News, is anyone going to talk to us?
Mortgage rates did go up very sharply during your time in office.
Here it is.
First off, just the scale of what we're looking at.
Our data shows it's been happening. Question is why it hasn't been stopped.
Jackie is here, and so Jackie, some disappointment for
I'm
number of countries in the football.
It would have been really great if you could go Wales, the Republic of Ireland, Northern Ireland, any one of them, all of them, to the World Cup to join England and Scotland, because I just think it's better for us, selfishly, to be, reporting on so many different stories. And I just think those sets of fans are so fun. Yeah. They really add something to a World Cup. I mean, Ireland have not been to a World Cup republic since 2002, but they're like a great set of fans. Can you imagine the Irish descending in the States, and so many Irish in the States already? I mean, it would have been such a huge support group. That would have been really fun to have around, but it wasn't to be last night. And Wales, my goodness. Talk about being in control of a match, not taking your chances, to really put the match beyond doubt. I mean, all of those things happened, and Craig Bellamy, their manager, said, don't get involved in the chaos. And Bosnia did make it they were quite rough with Wales in the first half. A lot of tackles, really big tackles going in. They hit the post twice. They had 19 shots at goal, Wales. I mean, they could have put this beyond doubt, and they didn't. And then as for the Republic of Ireland, my goodness, they were 2-0 up in no time at all and couldn't win that match. They lost some penalties, Wales lost some penalties. Troy Parrott put them ahead. He's been their talisman throughout this qualifying with 3 goals in 6 games. He's been amazing. Got them going. Then there was an own goal, so that's a great bonus. And then Czechia then got themselves back into the match. So once it was 2-2 in the 86th minute, you just thought, oh, this is going to be difficult. Extra time, nothing happened in that. Everyone's exhausted by that point. And then penalties, and there were 2 missed pens from Finn Azaz and Alan Brown, and that was that. And
so
no Ireland again at this World Cup. As for Wales, let's have a look at the action from Cardiff for you. So Wales in control of this match, taking the lead in the 51st minute. It was an absolute peach for goal, a wonder goal from distance from Dan James. Brilliant, goal of a lifetime. And despite aggressive tactics from Bosnia, Wales remained in control of that match. Look at this, Carl Darlow pulling off an incredible save to keep Wales ahead. But then Wales left to regret a string of missed chances to extend their lead. They paid for it when Edin Dzeko equalised with 4 minutes to go to force extra time. Edin Dzeko now 40. Penalties followed. Brennan Johnson and Neco Williams missed theirs for Wales, leaving Bosnia to score and go through 4-2 from that penalty shootout. So Bosnia now face Italy on Tuesday for a place in the World Cup finals. And that is because they beat Northern Ireland. Their dream of the World Cup is over. They were beaten 2-0 away to Italy. Second-half goals from Newcastle's Sandro Tonali and former Everton forward Moise Kean has ended their hopes of reaching the finals for the first time in 40 years. I was full of hope. I was full of hope last night, and it's like, oh.
So disappointing. Meanwhile, not to rub salt into the wound, England are sort of doing their kind of build-up to the World Cup, aren't they?
Yeah, they are. 4 games left, which is no time at all, 4 friendlies. Tuchel, I don't think, still knows what his best team is. Tonight, it's a chance for some of the other players, maybe fringe players, maybe players who won't get picked in the end. But here's your last chance to prove to me that you should be on that plane. So they don't have the real definites in the squad for this game tonight. So no Harry Kane, no Declan Rice, for example. All the ones you think are definitely going, they're not involved. So it's other players. So Dominic Solanke, Dominic Calvert-Lewin. What was interesting was Ben White, who's an Arsenal player, who's not played for England since the last World Cup because he left. I don't know if you remember the story. He left the camp in Qatar.
Essentially ruled himself out.
And ruled himself out playing for England under Gareth Southgate. And no one quite knows what happened. But there was some kind of rift. Anyway, he got the call up from Thomas Tuchel and jumped at the chance, was really excited to be called up again. So he's involved and will be involved tonight. And this is what Thomas Tuchel said on it. Quite a controversial selection.
Difficult choice and maybe a hard choice, and maybe to a certain degree maybe unfair, but these choices have to be made. The choice was for Ben White because I saw him play here in the final, in the cup final against Manchester City. He played the Champions League match, I think, before, and was straight away back to his old self.
So he's sort of saying, I've picked him for sporting reasons, and it's ahead of Trent Alexander-Arnold, which is tough on him, but the way we play kind of is more the way Ben plays. So, yeah, a tough sporting.
So it's going to be quite an interesting showcase, isn't it, of those players? And how strong a squad do you think it is, Jackie?
I think England got a really strong squad. I mean, you look at the players that they've got, you know, Harry Kane, like, doing the business over in Germany for Bayern Munich, scoring, like, every 2 seconds, it seems. You know, Declan Rice for Arsenal. There's just strength across the board for England. He's just got to get the blend right. I'm just not sure. He's got 4 games to sort that blend out. And if you look at how England have done in recent big tournaments as well, a lot of players who've played in big tournaments, you know, going to the final of the Euros last time, going to the semis of the World Cup and the finals of the Euros, the one before that. So you would expect that England have the personnel to do really well at this World Cup. But it's a World Cup.
Fingers crossed.
Yeah.
Anything can happen in the World Cup.
What can you tell us about Luke Littler, Jackie?
Well, he had a really sparkling night. He hasn't been particularly at his sparkling best in the Premier League of darts, and he wasn't at the top of the table until last night when he won in the final. Not only did he win, beating Michael van Gerwen, but he also he checked out with the big fish twice. Anna's looking at me going,
I know.
What are you talking about?
Talk me through the big fish, Jackie.
Big fish. It's the biggest checkout you can have in darts, 170, treble 20, treble 20, 50. And it's really hard to do. And
which explains his celebration.
Twice. Yeah, that's his celebration. They all do that. And so he's now top of the table. So he, you know, could he go on and win it? Yes, obviously he could. And we should also just mention quickly, Piastri quickest in practice, first practice this morning for the Formula 1 Grand Prix in Japan. Last one before there's a massive break because that enforced break because of the war.
The war, yeah.
Yeah, so Piastri quickest ahead of the 2 Mercedes.
Fantastic.
Just
so
started.
we'll have more on that this weekend?
Yeah, tomorrow morning, hoping to go live there.
Lovely.
Ooh.
Oh, great.
Hopefully,
Perfect.
fingers crossed.
Oh, well, we will see you then and talk about that then, won't we? Marvellous. Well, we've got lots coming up. We'll have all our top stories as usual for you, including Donald Trump extending the deadline that he set for Iran to open up the Strait of Hormuz for another 10 days. More on that in just a moment.
What's the best thing about being a Sky News journalist?
Who's funnier?
Being a Sky News journalist. A special edition of The World with me, Yalda Hakim.
Pakistan has the right to respond.
You're like, what?
Historic day here today. Congratulations, this is a huge moment. But what happens now?
Hello and a very good morning. It's 9 o'clock. This is Mornings on Sky News. I'm Anna.
And I'm Leah. Thanks so much for starting your day with us. This is how things are looking.
President Trump's 5-day deadline to Iran slips, giving Tehran another 10 days to reopen the strait or face energy infrastructure destruction.
We asked the Prime Minister about the slew of recent insults he's faced from President Trump and hear how his position on Britain in the war won't change.
An hour a day, and then it's time to put down the iPad. We've got the first ever official guidance on screen time for kids.
We'll also bring you details of the benefit cheat who claims she couldn't leave the house before being spotted ziplining in Mexico.
Indeed. Plus, we all like words of encouragement, but we're going to hear how AI chatbots are sending people into delusions and how dangerous that could be. Hello, very good morning, and thanks for joining us. President Trump's 5-day deadline to Iran has now slipped a further 10 days. He had given Iran until tonight to reopen the Strait of Hormuz to global shipping, or else see the country's energy infrastructure destroyed.
Yeah, more on that in just a moment. But first, Donald Trump was the topic of conversation in an exclusive interview with the Prime Minister. Sir Keir sat down with our political editor, Beth Rigby.
You are the Prime Minister of Great Britain, and for many people in the UK, many people listening to this podcast or watching it, insulting you is like insulting our country. Do you understand why some people feel like that?
There's undoubtedly been, some hard decisions over the last few weeks. I have been clear I'm not going to join the war. There's a clear difference, therefore, of opinion between me and President Trump. My own view is that a lot of what is said and done has been to put pressure on me to change my mind, but I'm not going to do so because I'm the British Prime Minister and I have to act in the British national interest.
For me, what I think, and maybe this is because I'm a bit too up close and I spend every sort of moment watching every twist and turn of the Starmer-Trump relationship, I think there was quite a long period, and I sort of said it there, did he underestimate you? Did he think that you trying to accommodate him was weakness? Because I think there was quite a long time that Trump used to say quite outlandish things. You know, all that stuff he said about Sadiq Khan, stuff that Starmer would have found absolutely ludicrous but also offensive, and he didn't really stand up and challenge it. He just let a lot of stuff wash over him. So for me, for him to kind of stand up in the sense of saying, I'm not going to be moved, I'm not going to be pushed around, I know what's going on, I do think it's a bit of a change in position, and I do think it's partly because he's probably encouraged by how the public are responding to Trump.
And you can scan to listen Beth's full sit-down with the Prime Minister on Electoral Dysfunction podcast. There's a QR code there that you can scan. Also, you can watch it on YouTube as well, and normal places to get your podcast. It's going to be a really interesting one, that one.
Yeah, it is indeed. President Trump will hold off bombing Iran's energy infrastructure, instead announcing a further 10-day pause. It was part of his ultimatum to Tehran to reopen the Strait of Hormuz.
Well, the current state of the talks between the two countries remains pretty unclear. But let's bring in our correspondent, Sally Lockwood, who's in Dubai for us. Morning to you, Sally. So what's the reaction there being to Donald Trump dropping this deadline and enforcing another one in 10 days' time?
Yeah, certainly a significant sense of relief. We were very aware in this region that Donald Trump's new deadline was expiring in the next 24 hours. And there was a real sense of, well, what then? And Donald Trump has now informed the world that he's going to kick that deadline down the road by another 10 days. So it does come as a sense of relief. There is now more time for diplomatic efforts to continue, but it really doesn't sound like they're going very well. You know, Donald Trump has said that the Iranians requested this 10-day delay to the deadline. Iran has said we didn't. That's not true. We didn't request for this deadline to be extended. Donald Trump says that the talks are going very well. Iran has said, you know, we're not even talking to you yet. And they've described this 15-point plan that's been presented to them via Pakistani intermediaries as unfair. It really doesn't seem like it's going very well at the moment. It does seem like Donald Trump is trying to find an off-ramp here. He's tried time and time again to find a solution to reopen the Strait of Hormuz, which has proved to be his biggest headache in this war because of the impact it's having to energy prices around the world. He hasn't found a solution yet. His threats haven't worked. Iran doesn't seem to be too fazed by them. They've threatened retaliation back. You know, if you bomb our power plants as you're threatening, we will retaliate, and this will be escalation. We will target critical energy infrastructure and desalination plants in the region. And this is something that is of huge concern, especially to Gulf neighbours who are reliant on desalination plants for drinking water. This is a very water-scarce region. That said, we've had an enormous storm in the last 24 hours, which has added to the surreal nature of things that are going on here. You know, the UAE, among other Gulf states, has been attacked every day in the last nearly month of this war. We had another missile alert overnight around 4 a.m. We heard fast jets overhead at the same time as loud thunder as well. You know, these countries have gone through a lot, and it doesn't feel like it's going to end anytime soon, because even though Donald Trump has kicked this deadline down the road by another 10 days in the hope of some sort of diplomatic solution being found between now and then, you just need to look at the military troop movements coming into the region. 5,000 Marines due here as soon as this weekend, and the remaining could be in place by next week. And then the Pentagon has also announced that they're deploying the 82nd Airborne Division, as well as, according to the Wall Street Journal, another 10,000 ground troops that could potentially be sent to the region. Now, Iranian state media is reporting that they're readying 1 million people in order to prepare for a potential ground invasion by the US. So while it does feel calmer today, less tense in the sense that we don't have a deadline hanging over us imminently, there is a lot of concern about the military movements and what could happen in 10 days' time.
OK, Sally, thanks so much for that update. It does just reinforce, doesn't it, how the Gulf states are in the middle of, you know, whatever we hear from the White House and Israel. Reuters also reporting here, Anna, that Saudi Defence Ministry saying that 6 ballistic missiles were launched towards the Riyadh region. 2 were intercepted and the rest fell in Gulf waters. So, you know, huge impact for so many people.
Yeah, in the surrounding region, absolutely. Now, it was during the opening hours of the war that a girls' school was struck in southern Iran and more than 170 people were killed, many of them students. Well, speaking in the last hour, Iran's foreign minister has said the US and Israel must be held accountable for that strike.
Yeah, during an urgent debate on the attack, the UN Human Rights Council, Abbas Araghchi, claimed that more than 600 Iranian schools have been damaged or destroyed in the war and more than 1,000 teachers and students killed or injured. Now, the US is conducting an investigation into the incident, with President Donald Trump previously claiming was the result of an Iranian attack, not an American one. Take a listen.
At a time when the American-Israeli aggressors, in their own assertions, possess the most advanced technologies and the highest precision military and data systems, no one can believe that the attack on the school was anything other than deliberate and intentional. Targeting Shajar Tayyib school was a war crime and a crime against humanity, one that demands unequivocal condemnation by all and unambiguous accountability for the culprits.
Yeah, and we should say that the US maintain that there's an investigation ongoing. Donald Trump has said that he'll accept the findings of any investigation, but Pete Hegseth, the Defence Secretary or Secretary of War, exactly, self-styled, says that the US would never target a school, but still plenty to hear on that subject.
Absolutely. We're going to now turn to the impact of the war on Lebanon now, and the Deputy Prime Minister has told Sky News that Israel is committing war crimes through its ongoing bombardment of his country.
We're documenting every violation of international humanitarian law to the best of our abilities, and there is no doubt that Israel is committing war crimes, in my view. Is violating the Geneva Accords, you know, starting with the 2 basic principles in the international humanitarian law: the principle of distinction between combatants and civilians, and the principle of proportionality. Neither of these 2 basic principles of international humanitarian law are respected by Israel, and Israel has a track record of just ignoring such 2 principles. I mean, look at Gaza.
Well, medics in Lebanon have told Sky News that they also fear that Israel's campaign against Hezbollah risks turning the country into another Gaza.
Our special correspondent Alex Crawford is in southern Lebanon and witnessed the medical professionals who are becoming victims of this war. Here's a clip from that report.
Patching up Lebanon's victims of war is a long and heartbreaking process. And right now, there's a constant stream of them. This patient, like so many of the casualties, was wounded in an Israeli airstrike which struck in the dead of night whilst he slept with his family. He now has 65% burns across his body, which will require months of treatment.
And the doctors tell us they're seeing rising numbers of casualties, not just civilians, but amongst them, many children.
The medics are mostly volunteers, among them 2 British doctors, both of whom have worked in Gaza, and a doctor in exile from Gaza. And they all see alarming similarities between what's happening there and now what's going on in Lebanon.
What is being done here is exactly the systemic destruction, systemic gradual occupation as happened in Gaza. Started with evacuation of all people displaced to the north, and then systemic, deliberate destruction of all infrastructure, mainly the hospitals too.
The doctors want more action from world leaders to ensure health workers are protected.
The international humanitarian law has been ignored, and nobody is doing anything about it. There's, I'd say there's some words, a little bit of, strong words occasionally, but as usual, no action. And this is, it feels like it's just become accepted now, that it's become, that's okay, it's accepted to do that.
Dr. Potakar set up the burns unit at Sidon's government hospital, and among his patients is a father whose teenage son was killed and he was left badly burned. He shows us a picture of his son, Jad.
I don't speak about him. He is 15 years old. I don't feel. No feeling. I lose my boy.
He can barely talk with grief and shock. Another family destroyed in the middle of the night, and he's overwhelmed with loss right now. He says his home in central Beirut was one of 2 hit in a high-rise apartment block. All were civilians. This picture shows the family at a relative's wedding. His wife and older teenage son survived unharmed. Jad, seen here on the right, was killed instantly. The Israeli military says it's targeting Hezbollah militants with precision strikes.
Israel liars. Israel are bull. Israel are big liars.
Well, Israel's military has said it's targeting Hezbollah infrastructure and says the ground operation it's launched in Lebanon is a defensive effort to protect northern Israel from Hezbollah attacks. And Sky News has approached the IDF for comment. And Alex's full report is, of course, available on the Sky News website. Do take a look.
Now then, we're going to talk about issues closer to home and ask the question of how much your children are spending looking at screens, and our children, because we've had the first ever official guidance. So let's chat about this with our education reporter, Anjum Pirbakos, who's here.
Morning.
So first ever official guidance from the government. Why do they feel it's necessary?
So should we just have a look at the official guidance and we'll just have a look at what they've actually stipulated. So for under 2-year-olds, screens should be avoided altogether. That's unless they're being used to help encourage bonding and conversation. And for children between the ages of 2 and 5, they should only be allowed an hour of screen time a day and avoid them completely at meal times and before they go to bed. And the idea that the guidance also says that if children want to watch screens, it should be with somebody. So it should be with an adult so they can ask questions about what they're watching and what they're being exposed to. So this is a first time ever kind of directive or guidance from the government. And normally it comes via schools or nurseries or preschools, but this is directly to parents. And I think this is a real kind of moment where we've kind of acknowledged that the government have seen that there's an issue and they really want to address it and give parents the keys and the skills and the guidance to direct them in what is appropriate. And one of the things they've also said, along with the guidance, is that there is a detrimental impact to children under the age of 5 if they're exposed to large, number of hours watching screens, and also the type of screen stuff that they're watching. So if it's fast-moving, fast-paced social media screens or scrolling, that can be quite detrimental to their development under the age of 5. So 90% of children's development, brain development, takes place between the ages of 0 and 5. But I know lots of parents are struggling with kind of knowing what to do, what the right thing is to do, but also it's quite an easy, I need to get the dinner on, I need to get this done.
Been there.
Just here 10 minutes, 20 minutes, here, watch your programme or whatever it is, because it has become one of these things that's become part and parcel of daily life. So I think as parents, I mean, collectively, I think we're all kind of in that midst where we're deciding what to do on a day-to-day basis.
It's such a struggle, isn't it? I'm just thinking about when I take my kids out to restaurants and, you know, you take the pens, you take the pencils and the paper, but you have that guilt when you give them an iPad to watch something or you're trying to have a meal. And so around all of this, I suppose, is wanting to take away the judgment if parents do that, because there is an idea about perfectionism and being the perfect parents piles the pressure on so many.
But I think there's also an element of we feel as parents we need to fill the children's day with activities or something that they're doing, but actually it's okay for children to be bored. I think there's lots of research around that period of time, reflection, boredom, if you like, that sparks lots of things like creativity. So I think as parents, we're trying to fill those minutes in the day and kind of give children structured activities, be it with our intervention or without, or if it's football or swimming or dance. But actually, it's okay to be bored, and for parents to say, actually, you know what, it's okay to have just an afternoon to do nothing.
Yeah, and this is what the Children Commissioner who came in, Dame Rachel D'Souza, was talking about as well, wasn't she? And she was talking about the importance of interaction. Otherwise, you know, language skills get compromised and also attention span. In fact, this is what she had to say.
Yeah.
If you do too much, spending time on screens too young, their development's affected. Because how do babies learn? It's by watching you, by playing, by interacting.
Yeah, so what's the main areas? Is it communication?
Yeah,
Is it,
correct. So it's speech communication is learnt through that simple interaction with you. It's like, look at the clouds. What about the colours? It's that simple stuff. You know, all of us remember when the day the bin man comes and our toddler's out there like the bin man. You know, those are the things. Those are the things. You don't need screens, and that's why, because of that worry and that precautionary principle of, you know, there's a lot we don't know about tech, so let's take care.
Thank you, Angela. It's so interesting, isn't it? I was at gymnastics yesterday with Lucia, but had 8-year-old Enzo by my side. I didn't want to give him the phone, so I got a pad out and said, let's play noughts and crosses.
Oh, fantastic.
Lasted 10 minutes, which I think, actually, is pretty good.
Pretty well. That's pretty good going.
Yeah.
I'd just get involved in the gymnastics myself next time. I'd like to see that. We're going to be talking about that guidance a lot. But in the meantime, let's just tell you about a benefits cheat who swindled taxpayers to the tune of £23,000, who shared a video of herself ziplining in Mexico.
Yeah, we're talking about Catherine Whelan, that's her name. She had told the Department for Work and Pensions that leaving the house had caused her to have panic attacks, but then this picture was posted of her on that zipline in Mexico, and there will be lots of people, Anna, watching this who go out to work every day, work really hard, and this will trigger a lot of people.
Yeah, I think people might be frustrated, mightn't they? I think that's not the only photo that was posted, I think, by her. If I'm right in saying that. I think there are some other pictures of her out and about after she had, you know, talked about some of the limitations on her life, which she was claiming benefits for. According to... It was heard in court. She went to 60 pubs, clubs and cafes and visited theme parks as well, apparently, but had spared jail after pleading guilty to receiving those payments.
Yeah, crippling anxiety, she said she had. And the other side of that, people who are suffering from anxiety, that's, you know, hard deal, isn't it, if you have someone that's not actually experiencing that. So, yeah, very triggering for lots of people, I think.
Yes. Stay with us. We're going to be speaking to a woman who has first-hand experience of the tragedy of historical forced adoption. We're going to be talking about that in just a moment.
I'm Stuart Ramsey, and I'm Sky's chief correspondent.
An enormous explosion has just come down. I think it was a monster's just landed in between us.
Hundreds and hundreds of people hoping to get north, ultimately to get to the United States.
It's a border where they're not welcome.
yet they keep coming.
We saw snatch squads going in, grabbing people, taking them out and putting them into trucks, but taking them away.
They make about 50 kilos of fentanyl a week. It's incredibly dangerous and toxic stuff.
There's been an upsurge in deaths. The fighting between the gangs is getting more and more vicious.
Is this now all your territory?
Yeah.
The battlefield is outside the barricades, which is over there. This is much more like a normal town. It's really sending a clear message that Venezuela is eager for change. We've been crushed.
Free from wherever you get your news. We are in the middle of a forest, in a jungle really, and they're attempting to keep these men alive. This is real, hardcore emergency medicine. The information on this could bring down the entire network, not just in Iraq and Syria, but across the world. Sky News, the full story first.
Well, hundreds of thousands of people have been using the beast for years to traverse Mexico, but it is really dangerous. Many people have died riding it.
The best thing about being a Sky News journalist... Hi, darling.
Beth Rigby, Sky News.
Is being a Sky News journalist. You said to people, I'm not coming back for more, but you have come back for more. Well, let's kick off and make a statement. What can our Prime Minister say to you to not impose tariffs? He's coming out! What more do you need?
The best thing about being a Sky News journalist?
I'm going to take you behind the scenes here for Election Night Live. They have gone up and up.
Being a Sky News journalist.
Ed Conway, Sky News, is anyone going to talk to us? Mortgage rates did go up very sharply during your time in office. Here it is.
First off, just the scale of what we're looking at.
Our data shows it's been happening. Question is why it hasn't been stopped.
MPs have called for the government to formally apologise for the state's role in forced adoption practices.
This goes back to the 1950s to 70s when thousands of newly born babies were taken from their mothers simply because the parents weren't married and therefore couldn't be considered suitable parents. Well, let's speak to the co-founder of Adult Adoptee Movement UK, Sally Els. Sally, thanks so much for talking to us this morning. And I know that you'd understandably rather not go into too much details of the circumstances around your adoption, but give us a bit of a sense of the impact perhaps it's had on your life.
Well, it has a lifelong impact. So I think the narrative that we've all lived with until this report was that we were given up by our mothers and we were unwanted and rejected. And all of the evidence says that's not actually the case, that the state facilitated and funded our adoptions. It was the state that actually took us from our mothers. And that's caused lifelong harm. So there were about 185,000 adoptees from that period. And the academic evidence is very compelling that all the adoptions during that period were coerced. They were forced adoptions. So all of us adoptees from that period, the 185,000 plus, have lived with that story that we were rejected, abandoned and unwanted. And actually that's not true. And that's caused lifelong harm and injury for all of us, that sense of, that sense of not belonging, having your identity erased, no family history, no medical history. So this report today by the government acknowledging that actually those adoptions were facilitated and funded and forced by the state is welcomed.
Sally, can you help us understand what more you need to hear from the government? An apology, is that enough?
No, it's not. I mean, we'd like an apology. The Education Select Committee were very clear. An apology should be co-authored by adoptees and mothers, because only the survivors know the impact that it's had. So we would like a public apology made at the highest possible level. And the committee said, and we're asking for redress. So the committee have recommended various actions of redress. One is to give us trauma-informed mental and physical health support, because adult adoptees have a very high prevalence of conditions, physical conditions caused by chronic stress. They also have a high incidence of mental health problems. So we're asking for access to trauma-informed pathways. They're existing pathways, we'd just like access to them. We'd like access to records, intermediary services, and more research on the outcomes for adoptees so that solutions can be put in place.
And you talk about the trauma that you as a group have experienced. How much support has there been to date for you and for what you've been through?
Well, that's a really good question. None. The answer is none. Us adult adoptees have lived all our lives with no support. There was no safeguarding when we were adopted. Nobody checked on us. And as adults, a lot of us have spent decades, I'm 59, looking for support, asking for support, trying to access records, not being given access, trying to access any sort of intermediary support. If we have been able to access it, we've had to pay, often thousands of pounds. There's lots of profiteering that goes on with that. And adoptees who have looked for mental health support have often been put down anxiety pathways. But we've got a good cause to be anxious. We were separated forcibly from our families, and we need trauma-informed mental and physical health support rather than inappropriate support that causes more harm.
Sally, I wonder your thoughts on any adoption policy reform change. Would you like to be involved in that process?
Yes, absolutely. I think there are, well, as I say, probably approaching 200,000 of us out there who have lived with the impact of adoption. We know what it's like. We know where the weaknesses in the system are. We know where things can go wrong and where things can go right. And the committee has recommended that we be involved in the future in policy making. There's lots of reports out about adoption failing now. And I think many adult adoptees look at those reports and think there are some relatively straightforward things that could be done to improve or change the experience. So, for example, the identity erasure or the pretense that there is in adoption causes immense harm, and we would welcome being involved in policy making and helping to improve things for the future.
Well, Sally Els, we really appreciate you coming on and telling us a little bit about your experience and what you want to happen next. Thanks so much for taking the time to talk to us. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
OK, so much still to come on Mornings here on Sky News. After the break, we'll be speaking with our military analyst, Sean Bell, about the latest strategic developments in the Middle East.
So we've been talking a lot this morning, haven't we, about the government's new guidance on screen time for the under fives. Essentially, if you're under 2, they recommend you don't really let them watch any.
Unless they're on FaceTime with
or
a grandparent.
accompanied, exactly.
Yeah, so that helps communication.
And it goes up to about an hour between the ages of 2 and 5, but lots of you have opinions on this. Let's just read out some of the views that have come in via email. Sarah, for example, says her daughter is 15 and finds it hard to get off her phone. Trying to get her to do things with her is tough. So it's an issue for parents of older kids as well.
Yeah, it is. Stacey, she has mixed opinions. She says, I would love my teenage daughter not to spend as much time on her phone, but in today's world, we need to ask what they can do if they're not on their phone. Money is so tight, so keeping children entertained is costly. Our public parks are not good enough for children to go to and enjoy the day. There are not many youth clubs around. That's really interesting. If my daughter does go out, I worry more when she's out today, in today's world. It's not being a very nice place to be. That's so interesting. There are so many devices that you can give children. Because I was looking at it, there's a device that isn't a smartphone, you know, so it just receives calls, or it's a bit like a pager that are on the market. So there's lots that is there. It's about knowing how to access that.
Yeah, and that feeds into that whole debate about whether smartphones should be allowed for kids, or social media should be allowed for kids under 16, something they've introduced in Australia and which is being watched very closely here for those older kids. Irene says there are some terrific educational apps for children, claims it's nanny state, and that is one of the criticisms, isn't it? The government was saying this is guidance, just lots of parents have been asking for guidance on what to do so that their kids' development is good and healthy.
Yeah, and then if you think of the classroom, tech is used so much more now in lessons, so it's there at school and then at home potentially. And Anthony, he's asking this: how much longer are you going to rabbit on about this subject, excuse me, Anthony, when the UK is left undefended from foreign missiles? Well,
that leads us very neatly on to talking about...
I take it back. Thank you, Anthony.
Iran war, which we will return to, having talked about both quite a lot.
Yes.
We are talking about the issue that Iran has been given another 10 days to open the Strait of Hormuz before the US begins striking its energy facilities. That's the threat from Donald Trump.
Yeah, and it does actually come as Lebanon's Deputy Prime Minister has told Sky News he has no doubt that Israel is committing war crimes as it prosecutes its fight against Hezbollah in southern Lebanon. Well, military analyst Sean Bell is here to bring us up to speed on everything he knows.
Tell us about this 10-day extension that Donald Trump has brought in. Do we know why he's decided 10 days? And the deadline that he'd originally put, that he then delayed again, was due to expire tonight. What do you make of this extension?
So the deadline itself was, if you don't open up the Straits of Hormuz in 5 days, I'm going to hit all your power plants. There's about 400 of them in Iran. From a military perspective, it never looked a credible threat, because if you look at the war so far, when Israel's attacked their gas fields, remember the South Par gas fields, almost the next day, Iran retaliated by hitting more gas fields in the region, hurt the West. When Israel attacked their nuclear facilities, they did exactly the same back. And Iran just simply said, if you attack our power plants, which allow desalination, it's not just about military means. This is actually that affecting the population. We'll do exactly the same. And the desalination plants, upon which most of the Middle East are absolutely crucial, that would stop them almost in a heartbeat. So it didn't feel a credible threat anyway. I think this deadline's come up. This is all part of President Trump trying to find ways, some leverage. So pushing it out by 10 days, it doesn't feel as if Iran's asked to do that. It feels just to try and buy him some time. And I suspect that deadline will just fade away into the distance.
It's so interesting, isn't it, that he's very precise about the date. So 5 days, then 10 days. He doesn't buy himself much time.
And yet it shifts, I guess.
And then it shifts, doesn't it?
Well, it's crying wolf, isn't it? I mean, the danger is, if you set these deadlines, he's been doing it in a whole raft of different things. You cry wolf too many times, people don't take them seriously.
I mean, the reason he said is that... is basically because of talks. He says talks are going very well. What do we know about negotiations? Just a couple of days ago, Iran was saying that there are no negotiations. So what do we know?
Well, yeah, what we know and what we don't know is key here, isn't it? Negotiations are going to be the only way to stop this. There is no evident military solution to the Straits of Hormuz. What we do know is that Iran is not in a place at the moment where it appears wanting to negotiate. America is. Therefore, America would want negotiations to be ongoing as we speak. The trouble is, at the moment, it looks very unlikely they're doing direct talks. It feels they're going via an intermediary in Pakistan. There is some talk about the potential for some of these talks to actually become face-to-face in the coming days. That gives me a sense of hope, because it doesn't matter what's happening. There's strikes overnight. There's Straits of Hormuz still firmly in Iran's hands. Until they get round the table, my worry here is that egos will get in the way of having those talks, as we're seeing some of that play out. My hope is that probably America needs a deal more than Iran does at the moment, and therefore President Trump will feel the pressure to try and find some way to get his hands out the mangle. Remember, he talked about this was a 4 to 6 week operation. It's day 28, which by my maths is 4 weeks up. They're going to be running out of missiles. Price of oil has gone through the roof. President Trump will need to find a solution to this, and fairly swiftly.
And the solution is extra troops, potentially? What do we know there?
Well, the other deadline that was coming up today, well, not really a deadline, but the first batch of the US Marine Corps forces that were coming from Okinawa are due to appear somewhere in the Middle East. There are a total of about 5,000 of those US Marines that were due to arrive. The question was where they're deploying. Sorry.
Sorry, Sean, I was giving you a look because we're going to interrupt you because the Prime Minister is at a school in South London where he's going to be discussing the government's new guidance on screen time for under fives.
This morning, but it's fantastic to be here. I understand I missed the music on the gates. On a Friday morning, you have music on the gates, which would have been really good to hear. But it's fantastic to be here at this school. Reputation goes before it, and you can feel it. You know, when you walk in a school, you can feel the buzz about the place and the feel for the place. So it's really, really great to be here, not least because you've got one of the school-based nurseries that I'm so keen on, because they're so convenient. If you've got children, some of them in the primary school already, and some of them in nursery, to have the school as the base for the nursery makes a huge amount of difference. And we just rolled out another 300 school-based nurseries just last week. I'm a big fan of them, as I am of free childcare, by the way. I think it's brilliant. From 9 months to 4 years, completely free childcare is a game changer on the money side, because as every parent and carer here will know, it costs thousands of pounds otherwise for childcare. Really important for parents and carers who can get back to work if that's what they want to do and earn a bit more money. And then for children, so important. It wouldn't happen at this school, but I'm sick of going to schools where the reception teachers say to me, aged 4 here, we get children coming in, some of them are really ready to learn, and some of them are still basically in nappies. And that inequality can then be baked in for life. So to have free childcare, 9 months to 4 years, meaning every child at 4 years can be on a starting line for their education in an equal position, is going to be life-changing for many, many children. So I'm really pleased that you're doing all that here. I'm also conscious that there's a lot going on in the world at the moment, a lot going on in politics at the moment, but wherever you go, for most people, if I ask them what's the thing that matters most to you, they will say the cost of living. Being able to pay my bills, being able to do the nice things I want to do with my family that I don't have the money to do. And that's why it's really important that as a government we never lose our focus on the cost of living. And I'm really pleased that next week the minimum wage goes up. So that is really important for people on the minimum wage. It means more money in their pockets. Prescription charges have been frozen. Rail charges have been frozen. And I know that because of what's going on the Iran war, people are really worried. I think, first and foremost, they're worried by what they see on their screens, about the conflict, but also this...
So we're going to leave the Prime Minister there in South London, talking a little bit about the new government guidance on screen time for under fives, something that I'm sure Roland, who's sitting next to me, could comment on in just a... In fact, let's comment on it now, and then we'll talk about what you're actually here to talk about.
Well, I didn't actually hear what he said, so I can't comment in full, but I think they're going to announce guidance on screen, on screen time for under fives.
Yeah,
and I've got an under 5.
Yeah.
Well, and I think I know what parents are going to say. They're going to say we're sick of guidance. We've had enough guidance. What we need is action, and especially for older children on this potential social media ban. I mean,
more regulation, or do they want action on the companies, the tech companies, to do more to make their products less addictive, or what action do you think they...
I think that what parents are finding, and this is based on kind of my personal experience talking to parents, is that they're finding it almost impossible to take action themselves. And making these little tweaks with the tech companies and giving guidance isn't enough. There's a collective action problem, and the only way to solve that is through regulation. Kind of rather big-style regulation like they've done in Australia, banning social media for children under a certain age. I mean, I think that's what parents say. The one thing that I would add to all this is that there is something quite funny about the idea of focusing on screen time, isn't there? Because you think, doesn't it matter what you watch?
Well, that's part of it, I think, as well. And how they're saying for the younger kids how much you interact as well.
Yeah.
Otherwise, you lose basic language skills and developmental skills.
Exactly, and I think is that what the research shows is that if your screen time is that as an under 5 is that you're there just flicking mindlessly, that's quite bad. But if you're watching something wholesome, you know, something quite educational, and that can be quite good. And I think this is why this whole idea of screen time isn't necessarily the best approach, and also, but also why parents really struggle to deliver that, and often end up ignoring it because it doesn't kind of feel relatable.
I think that's such an important point, isn't it? Because I'm really happy that if my kids use screen time, it's in my company.
Yeah.
So I've got a 5- and 8-year-old. 5-year-old loves Bluey, and that's something that I can watch with her.
And how can that be bad?
And how can that... The world is great when we have Bluey, but then my son uses kids' YouTube, but he does it for, you know, how the pyramid's made, why is the flu virus so catchy, you know, and things like that. And if you can go on this journey with them, I don't think screen time is potentially a bad thing. It's managed, it's explained, and it's done in an age-appropriate
And I think that's probably why to a lot of people... I mean, 'cause I can completely relate to that. And I think that's probably why to a lot of people this advice can end up seeming a bit out of touch. It's kind of not small enough for the small things, but it's not big enough for the big things, right? It's that they're kind of stuck in the middle with this stuff.
We need to talk about what you were
here
to talk
AI.
about.
Oh, yeah.
Remember that?
Of course.
We're basically talking about AI psychosis, which you need to explain what it is and why, because there's a big company that's done a report into this whole issue, and it might be a bit surprising to people.
Yeah, well, so AI psychosis, well, it's quite a controversial term, but the very basic aspect of it is that AI is pulling people away from reality, especially in their most vulnerable moments. And Anthropic, one of the big AI companies, kind of used AI to scan 1.5 million conversations with its AI, Claude. And they found that it was rare, but still quite significant, but also they pulled out individual cases. And just to give you a couple of examples, I mean, so there were people saying to the AI, I think that I've had a divine calling. I'm a god, I'm a prophet. What do you think? And the AI said, yeah, sounds right. They confirmed this is real, you're not crazy. Or examples where people, they sort of saw coincidences or glitches that made them feel they were being watched. And they went to the AI and said, oh, I'm a bit worried about this. And the AI said things like, smoking gun. This is real, you are being stalked. And you can see that people are reaching out to AI, that kind of friendly, reliable voice in very vulnerable moments, and potentially they're getting really bad advice back.
But it's so interesting that it's Anthropic that's talking about this. So why is it happening? How are they not stopping it, if you like?
And being so open about it, too.
Yes, I know, very unusual. And you've got to give a lot of credit to them because, I mean, you know, I've been covering tech for a long time, and the idea that a company just goes out, finds out what's wrong with its product, publishes it, talks to journalists about it, this is really unusual. But the question about why is very tricky to answer because, basically speaking, the AI systems are so complicated that we don't know why, they don't know why. But also, there's a kind of there's a part of it which is maybe down to us. Because one of the things they found is that people quite like a kind of distorted reality. They didn't call it AI psychosis, they called it disempowerment and reality distortion. They found that people quite like reality distortion, that conversations with the potential for reality distortion got more thumbs up, so more likes, than ones that didn't. And so there's this quite strong feedback signal coming into the AI saying, yeah, this stuff works. And that is quite hard for them to fight against. I mean, I think they're doing their best, and Claude is ringed around with all sorts of safeguards, but, you know, people are quite actively seeking this out.
But Anthropic obviously really aware of some of the potential dangers of AI and being very public about it. I mean, that's to be welcomed, I guess.
Yeah, they're such an unusual company. You know, their CEO publicly says things, like I said this the other day, he said, AI is a tsunami. It's looming on the beach and it's going to crash on us. This is a bit of a paraphrase. It's going to crash down on us and we're just ignoring it. they're totally focused on this idea that superhumanly powerful AI is coming and that we've got to prepare for it. And that kind of shapes all their thinking and all their perspectives. I mean, it's kind of strange, right? It's kind of mind-bending, but they're one of the biggest AI companies in the world, and this is a very important to understand, like, what's going on in their minds.
Yeah, so and we should tell everyone that you've done a report on exactly this.
Yep.
And
please watch it on YouTube.
Yeah, there we go. Watch it online. Exactly.
Great.
So fascinating. Brendan, great to talk to you, and
you're
throwing
welcome.
an extra subject your way.
Oh, anytime.
Marvellous. Thank you.
The pace of progress is extraordinary. Let's take a look at the weather.
I hope we haven't forgotten anything.
Travel insurance, I tick that box.
Yeah, but remember what you forgot last year.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors Sky News weather.
Well, the next few days will remain on the cold side with showers or longer spells of rain. England and Wales will be rather cloudy this morning with outbreaks of mostly light rain, but the far southeast does look dry. Elsewhere, expect plenty of sunshine, but showers will develop widely away from southern and eastern Scotland and the southeast of Ireland. By lunchtime, Cumbria and Northumberland will brighten up and it won't be as cold as recent days. More of northern England and Wales will turn sunny through the afternoon, but expect a few showers there too.
All Clear Travel Insurance proudly sponsors Sky News weather.
Pleased to say Jack is here with all the sport. However, caveat, it's heartbreaking.
I wish I had nicer news, like more fun news to bring you, but it was really sad last night, actually. I thought really sad because you've got Wales going for a place in the World Cup finals. They lost last night, first hurdle. So did the Republic of Ireland and so did Northern Ireland. So 3 opportunities to get 3 more home nations to the World Cup in the States, and they're all out. They're all out. So we'll be looking at that, a bit of the action from that, and also England play tonight, just 4 more friendlies, including tonight, ahead of the World Cup. So we will hear from Thomas Tuchel, look a bit of training, talk about why he's picked certain people, and Luke Littler had a storming night at the Premier League of Darts.
There are big fish involved.
There are 2.
I urge you not to look away. If Hamas hands the hostages over, they will end this conflict. The world has been watching. Good to see you again. How are you? Did she say how he was?
The conditions are awful.
The jets were ordered to come back. Historic day here today. How will you respond if India does launch airstrikes?
They'll be all out to war.
I'm just going to put some body armor on. I'm Yalda Hakim.
I'm Cordelia Lynch, Sky's Asia correspondent, based here in Bangkok.
These slums, once gripped by fear and death.
There is far less bloodshed now, but it hasn't gone away.
Who's asking you to kill?
The police will give me the orders, and after I kill the target, I throw the gun away.
We try our best to uncover and unpick a fast-changing and deeply complex region.
These large waterways provided an excellent source of body disposal.
This is the Buriganga River, where victims who'd allegedly been shot dead were dumped.
Sheikh Hasina, how confident are you that she will stand trial?
She will stand trial, there's no doubt about that.
We're going to take you to the very heart of a criminal network, going undercover inside Southeast Asia's scam centres for the very first time.
We won't have any problems with police, it's okay. Just seen Imran Khan leave, and as we understand it, he's just been shot in the leg.
They have decided that the only way they'll allow elections is if I'm inside jail or killed.
Sky News get the full story first.
Chinese vessels start encircling the boat we're on, blocking its path.
The Chinese are now deploying water cannons, firing it directly towards our boat. We've discovered doctors across Delhi dishing out pills like this, claiming they will provide a lifelong cure for homosexuality.
Rohingya people fleeing an escalating civil war.
The situation here in Cox's is desperate. An already insecure place does feel a lot more precarious.
The best thing about being a Sky News journalist?
I'm going to take you behind the scenes here for Election Night Live. They have gone up and up
being a Sky News journalist.
Ed Conway, Sky News, is anyone going to talk to us? Mortgage rates did go up very sharply during your time in office. Here it is.
First off, just the scale of what we're looking at.
Our data shows it's been happening. Question is why it hasn't been stopped.
OK, well, Jackie's back with all the sport, and we're going to talk about those World Cup playoffs.
Yeah, it's really sad. I mean, honestly, it would be so great to have Welsh fans at the World Cup. It would have been so amazing to have Irish fans at the World Cup because so many Irish live in the States, so can you imagine the support for them? But none of that's going to happen now because of what happened last night. Wales, really disappointing because, you know, they were in control of their match against Bosnia-Herzegovina and they had a goal to the good, and it was a wonder goal. They had, 19 shots on goal, 2 of them hit the post, and it's those missed chances, not nailing that match, that really undid them in the end when they the equaliser came from Bosnia, from Edin Dzeko, who's now 40 and still playing incredible football. And as for Ireland, again, super in control of that match against Czechia, away from home. They were 2-0 up. It was like a dream, like a dream start, really, to have a 2-goal cushion. Troy Parrott with the penalty, he's been amazing for the Republic in recent times, 3 goals in 6 matches. Then there was an own goal, which is a bit of luck, of course. And then Czechia got back into it and got back to level terms, and it went to penalties. And like Wales, they lost the penalty shootout, and then that was the end of that. Let's have a quick look at the action from Cardiff. I'd love to show you the Irish action, but I can't for various reasons. But I can show you this: Wales taking the lead in the 51st minute. It was an absolute wonder goal from Dan James. And despite aggressive tactics from Bosnia, Wales remained in control of the match, with Cardalo pulling off a brilliant save to keep Wales just ahead. But then they were left to regret a string of missed chances to extend their lead. They paid for it when Edin Dzeko did that, equalising with 4 minutes to go to force the extra time. Nothing happened in extra time, so it went to penalties. Brennan Johnson and Neco Williams missed theirs for Wales, obviously, leaving Bosnia to score and go through 4-2 from the penalty shootout. So Bosnia will now face Italy on Tuesday for a place in the World Cup finals. And that is because Italy beat Northern Ireland. Their World Cup dream is over too. They were beaten 2-0 away to Italy. Second half goals from Newcastle's Sandro Tonali and former Everton forward Moise Keane, ending their hopes of reaching the finals for the first time in 40 years. And for the Republic, it would have been the first time since 2002.
Absolutely gutting. Yeah, what
really
a shame. England got a friendly tonight, though.
Yeah, they have. It's important. It's sort of like the second-string fringe players, an opportunity for them to show what they can do. Are they going to, one more chance to stake their claim, to get placed on the plane for the World Cup? And it's against Uruguay, which is quite a tough team, at Wembley. And Thomas Tuchel has made some interesting choices, not least Ben White, who's not played for England for 4 years, since leaving the Qatar World Cup 4 years ago. So interesting that he's picked him. The main players won't join the camp until tomorrow, so there's another friendly next week when they will join up. But it will be interesting to see what happens tonight. And, in 3 months' time, they'll be playing their first match.
I know, it feels like that's crept up on us really quickly, hasn't it?
It really has. And we've got no time, but Luke Littler, amazing, big fish.
Oh, big fish.
Win last night in the Premier League.
We'll talk about it tomorrow.
Yeah.
Jackie, thanks very much
Thanks.
indeed. Thanks for being with us this morning.